simple, a simple approach to look at it. I'm looking at it as how are we going to really reform the city council? And if we're going to do it right, as the mayor wants to do, as she has a mandate from 75% of the people in the city, then we've got to go through and cut a wide swath and make sure that we're looking at every task that's happening in there. What are we supposed to review? If we're talking about reviewing bond documents that come down from the mayor's office or from the CFO, then we need to make sure we have people on staff who are reviewing that and giving us an analysis that either counters or is comparable to what the mayor's office is doing.
It's the Franz Bielman Show, this and every Friday, only at the Chicago Sun-Times website, chicago.suntimes.com.
Okay, we're ready. Wake up, Ben.
Oh, huh?
Yeah, come on. We got a show to do.
Oh, yeah.
All right, the Ben Joravsky Show for your Tuesday, May 7th is moments away. But before we get into the show, we would like to thank the following unions for helping bring back the Ben Joravsky Show. First up, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9. And the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, not Aerosmith, Local 126 and District 8, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. Thank you once again to those unions for jumping on board here and bringing back the Ben Joravsky Show. And, of course, today's program is brought to you by our friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. Oh, my. The Ben Joravsky Show, it starts now. It is Tuesday, May 7th, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, our Chicago Reader colleague Maya Dukmasova will join us. It's the return of our dear friend and resident wild man, Mark Sims, and we're talking all things Donald Trump's legal issues, so it'll probably be a long segment with ace attorney Jim Coogan of Dwyer & Coogan. And now your host, not an attorney, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Always Something Tuesday. And here's why. Great weekend, everybody. Have a good weekend, D?
Yeah, I mean, it was 2 days ago. Kind of over the weekend, onto the week. But yeah, it was good. Rode my bike.
Wow. Okay, That's good. I rode my bike too, man.
All
right. It was a beautiful weekend. See what I'm saying? And just the good vibes is sticking with me, even though it was 2 days ago. Finally got around to seeing The Best Man, a movie that came out in 1999. Real dumb soap opera. A little embarrassed to admit how much I liked it. Came down to whether this one guy named Harper was going to get back together with Robin or would he fall for Jordan. I was like, no, go to Harper. Don't go to Jordan. He was really tempted, folks, but not to give too much away. He did the right thing.
Give it all away. That sounds awful.
The movie was from 1999. I don't think anybody was, but I was up late watching it. And then, speaking up late, I was up to the wee hours last night reading The Reckoning by John Grisham. Folks, I know a lot of my friends of the literary persuasion are like, John Grisham, oh no, oh dear, how could you read him? I love John Grisham, all right? And this is a real page turner. This is one of his best books ever. So I'm about halfway through, and I'll probably be up till 4 a.m. again this night.
Excellent.
Reading. So
as your coworker here, awesome, cool. Get as less sleep as you can.
It's my life, getting less sleep as I can. Anyway. Woke up, got back to business, and what did I see in the paper? Oh, yeah. Looks like legalized reefer may actually be coming to the state of Illinois. How about that, D? I've been advocating for this for years and years and years. Way back when I first was talking about, people would go, Ben, don't ask me questions about that. It's too controversial. You ever notice that, D? A lot of people come in the studio and go, Ben, don't ask me questions about fill in the blank. It's too controversial.
Kim Fox.
Kim Fox. Don't ask me about Kim Fox. I haven't figured out what I'm going to say. It's okay. I got you, okay? I'm the one who's got opinions about everything. Anyway, I was for legalizing marijuana way, way, way many years ago, and I'm getting a big kick about how long it's taken the state of Illinois as it ponders this really incredible challenge. All right, now the proposal, as I understand it, and I know you're going to take a deeper dive into this, D, much later in the show. So the proposal, as I understand it, would allow up to 30 grams of marijuana for anybody. And of course, I'm lost. I may know everything there is to know about, let's say, basketball, movies from the 70s, and politics. But I'm really bad with numbers. Not exactly damn bis and measurements. So 30 grams is an ounce. Am I right about that?
Yes, sir.
All right, what's a nickel bag?
Less than 30 grams.
Okay, there we go. Back in the day, folks, all right, when I was smoking reefer, we called it a nickel bag. I don't even know why they called it a nickel bag.
There's the dime bag, and then,
I guess there's more marijuana in the dime bag, hence the name, dime as opposed to nickel.
Eat your heart out, Daniel Biss.
Anyway, man, there's some funny stuff here with this marijuana bill. They're going over like, are we doing the right thing? They're really struggling with it. Everybody knows that it was at best foolish to make it illegal in the first place, that there's probably no reason why marijuana should have been illegal. And whoops.
Oh, that was my phone.
Wow, my God.
Put that on silent.
That could be your dealer. Anyway,
Wait,
there's no...
It is! Ben, I gotta go.
It's a dime bag or a nickel bag. There's no reason marijuana should have been illegal and liquor would be legal. We all know that. From practical experience, being around people who are drinking and people who are smoking reefer. But for whatever reason, and it's probably racial, marijuana was illegal and alcohol was legal. So anyway, now we're struggling with this, pretending like this is a real serious concern. Anyway, guess who weighs in? Mike Madigan weighs in. Yeah, we're going to be talking about this later as well, D. I know that, but I just couldn't help to mention it now. It was in my beloved bright one. That's a newspaper, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, we got a camera.
Show those live streamers. There you go.
There's Michael Madigan in the picture. See that?
He's not lying. Those are newspapers, guys.
Anyway, Michael Madigan, the House Speaker. We don't hear much about him. It's funny. He was the Mr. Evil in the state of Illinois when Bruce Rauner was the governor. Remember that, D? Every day. Madigan. The Tribune's editorial board. Madigan.
Yay for our teachers.
Rauner. I bet you Rauner may have smoked a little reefer back in the day. What do you think, D? Back in high school?
Oh, absolutely. Corncob pipe and all.
We had really good reefer back at Lake Forest. Anyway, all right, Michael Madigan. I got a feeling Michael Madigan may be one of the few politicians in Springfield debating this issue who's never smoked. That's just my hunch. I could be wrong on that one, right? He's born... People think Madigan is ancient. He's been around here forever, but he is the same age as the Beatles. Now, think about this. Do you think of the Beatles as old and ancient, D? I guess you would, because you're millennial.
Yes, I
do. So Madigan is... But the Beatles smoke reefer? That's my point. So if the Beatles smoke reefer, Madigan may have smoked. Anyway...
He was probably 30 during Woodstock, so...
I would say that Michael Joseph Madigan, and I'm doing this off the top of my head without a phone, and I know Frank is all ready to weigh in and correct me, was 27. I want to say he was 20. Woodstock was in 1969. I think Michael Madigan was born in 42, so that would make him 27 if my math is correct.
27 during Woodstock? Oh, that guy's got none.
But it depends. Not everybody who was 27 in 1969 was like a hippie. He could have been like hating hippies or something like that. Anyway, he's very concerned. Here's his concern as featured in an interview. Yeah, Michael Madigan gave an interview. Now, D, I believe you're going to actually be able to play some portions of this interview later in the show. So I will now do my Michael Madigan imitation.
This will really bring in the listeners.
Actually, I don't have a Michael Madigan imitation, so I'll just read this. There are some very controversial aspects to the proposal. Number one would be the proposal for the expungement of criminal records. The key on that issue is how far do you go in terms of expungement? If we're talking about some teenager who was doing drugs and found guilty of possession, that's one thing. If you're talking about people who are actually in the business, dealers, and you want to expunge their records, that's a different case. He's concerned about expunging the records of dealers. Not that I want to disagree with Michael Madigan, but I have to say this. We are slowly coming to the conclusion that the war on drugs, as exhibited by our making marijuana illegal, the war on drugs was wrong. It caused massive destruction to communities, families, individuals lost their lives, years of their lives, I should say. So the war on drugs was wrong. It was particularly destructive to the black community. So if the war on drugs was wrong, if making marijuana was wrong, making marijuana illegal was wrong, and we recognize that by making it illegal, why would we not expunge the records of people who are selling marijuana? If we now say it was not wrong to sell marijuana or to consume marijuana, but that the law against it was wrong, then why would we resist expunging the records of a dealer? I mean, we're still struggling with this, people. If the law was wrong, you can't punish people for breaking it. We got a great show today, everybody.
Oh, by the way, Frank has weighed in.
Oh, what did he say?
You are right, Ben. Mike Madigan was 27 years old during Woodstock 1969.
Ooh, thank you, Frank. Man, guys, by the way, hope to see Frank at the Hideout tonight. We'll be there at 6:30, Mick Dumke and myself. Who will be there tonight? Alderman Scotty Wagasback. I think we're going to be hearing from him later today. A tape from Fran Spielman's show. Alderman Scott Wagasback will be there. And Maria Haddon will be there, the newly elected alderwoman from the 49th Ward. We'll be talking about politics in the age of Lori Lightfoot. Maybe doing a little reminiscing about Rahm. I'm sure Scott will be weeping with nostalgia as Rahm heads out the door. Anyway, Frank, I hope to see you there tonight at the Hideout, 6:30, 1354 West Wabansia.
That's off Elston and between North Avenue and Ashland.
It's right where Lincoln Yards is coming, folks. You might as well go there and see where your tax dollars are going. Oh, my God, I got to tell you about this conversation I had with an alderman, but we'll do that later in the show, a conversation I had with an alderman about Lincoln Yards. Very revealing. Anyway, great show today. We'll have Maya will be here in about 20 minutes or so, my beloved co-partner at The Reader. Maya Duke Masova, and it's easy for you to say.
Duke Masova.
Oh, yeah, Duke Masova. She always, Ben, it's Duke Masova. Duke Masova.
It's like matzo,
yeah,
matzo ball.
You know what's interesting? Mr. I Know Everything over there, you're the reason I get it wrong because you said it wrong, and I just follow you off a cliff.
But I've gotten it right since then.
Yeah, well, some people are slower than
others. It's like
others.
matzo ball. Duke matzo ball. Duke Masova.
Duke matzo ball. There we go.
Oh, now we've created a new problem.
Anyway, Mark Sims, that's not hard to pronounce. He'll be here. He'll be here at 2 o'clock. Got a lot to talk with Mark about. Man, Mark's got interesting ideas about absolutely everything. And he already was giving me grief about our Stacey Davis Gates interview from yesterday. So Mark Sims will be here at 2 o'clock and then 2:30. Oh, yeah. Get out your pencils, get out your paper, get ready to take some notes. We're doing the deep dive.
I'm ready.
With Jim Coogan, our expert on all things Trump and his legal issues. All right, legal issues of Donald Trump. Jim Coogan, of course, ace attorney from Dwyer and Coogan. So anyway, lots of political talk, lots of reefer talk, and lots of other good talk. But before we do any of that, the doctor has the news.
Oh, so what am I, just bad talk?
You're good
Lots
talk.
of good talk, but first, this guy.
No, we didn't mean it literally.
Okay. All right. Hey, I'm Dennis, by the way, guys. Before we find out what's happening in the national news, oh, wait, Ben, you already talked about it. It's Ben Joravsky and Mick Dumke's monthly First Tuesday show starting at 6:30 tonight. If you're listening live or on the download, well, come hang out. Check it out. Ben, who do you have lined up again? Scott Wagaspack, 32nd Ward Alderman.
And Maria Haddon, newly elected. She's the newly elected, she hasn't been sworn in yet, alderwoman of the 49th Ward, defeated Jolton Joe Moore, the longtime incumbent. So
also live stream chat. What's going on, chat room? We got Pat Rod in the building. He says, what up, guys? What up, Pat Rod? Join Pat Rod. Get in that live stream chat. All right, national news. Still no Donald Trump tax returns. On Monday, the Treasury Department denied a request by Congress for copies of Donald Trump's tax returns, saying that Congress had overstepped its bounds in requesting them. Ben, we have boundaries all of a sudden.
Suddenly there's boundaries.
Whoa. Yeah. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said in a letter to House Ways and Means Chairman Richard Neal on Monday that the request from Congress was unprecedented and that he had consulted with the Justice Department on its legality. Here's the quote from Munchin, quote, "In reliance on the advice of the Department of Justice, I have determined that the committee's request lacks a legitimate legislative purpose, and the department is therefore not authorized to disclose the requested returns and return information."
All right, bye. By the way, when he went to the Justice Department to get its legal advice, it's not as though he was going to a objective source. He went to a source that would give him the advice he wanted in the first place, everybody. They're all part of the Donald Trump team. It's not like the Justice Department is this independent outlet of lawyers who are viewing everything like, they're Solomon. Well, that's a good point. The president should have to release his taxes, everybody. Other president does. The president insists that he can't do it because he's being audited, but that, of course, is a made-up rule. At that point, if they were objective, they'd say, we see no reason that you shouldn't compel him to release his taxes. But they're part of that Donald Trump team, so this game will go on all the way till impeachment.
In other news nationally, Democrats are still calling for the resignation or impeachment of William Barr and Donald Trump after Barr's handling of special counsel Robert Mueller's Russian collusion investigation, or lack thereof. White House Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has weighed in. Oh, boy. It's going to be entertaining here. McConnell said that it's been more than 6 weeks since Mueller concluded his investigation of Russia's election tampering and delivered his report. And McConnell has called for an end to this, quote, Groundhog Day spectacle to stop endlessly relitigating a 2.5-year-old election result and move forward. He said Trump's critics made Mueller a secular saint. And here's the quote from McConnell. Case closed. Case closed. Ben, what do you think? Is the case closed? Should we move on from the Mueller report?
No, absolutely not. In fact, I love the Groundhog Day metaphor. I presume he's referring to the movie, Bill Murray movie, Groundhog Day, for 10 trivia points. Who directed that movie, young Dennis?
Harold Ramis.
Very good. Ding, ding, ding. Give that man a blue Mustang.
And I think he's referring to the 6 weeks.
Ooh, what?
Like when the groundhog sees a shadow, it's supposed to be another 6 weeks. Or
is that what it is?
That's what he said.
Oh, but I thought he said it was 6 weeks ago that the report was released.
But it's not so much the movie, just about the whole process.
Oh, well, anyway, but let's say he were referring to it. Let's just say, okay? In that movie, Bill Murray, by recreating the same day every day, not to give too much away, realizes...
Yeah, how dare you give away this movie that's been out for 30 years?
What's wrong with his life? Is it 30 years?
It's been a long time.
Not 30 years. Can't be 30
in the 90s.
Years. Okay, let me do my math. I'm again, one more time, not Dan Biss, but I guess someone born in 1990 would be 29 this year. So almost 30 years. Anyway, focus, Ben, focus.
Oh, Mr. Exactor.
In the movie, Bill Murray recreates the same day over and over again, and he comes to a realization of what he's doing wrong with his life and how he can change his life to be a better person. Okay, so the movie has an upbeat ending. If we were literally Groundhog Day, Mitch McConnell, Donald Trump would wake up today and go, you know what? I should release my income taxes because it's wrong for you to conceal from the American people what I've been up to and how much I'm really worth and what potential conflicts of interest there are. Just saying, if it were Groundhog Day, you would come to a realization, all right? Or you, Mitch McConnell, would wake up one day and go, you know what? I've been wrong to continually stick with Donald Trump as he leads us down a rabbit hole and keeps us from learning the truth about what went down in 2016. I was wrong, see? So if you want to use the Groundhog Day metaphor, Mitch, you got to come clean.
So Ben Joravsky says the case is not closed. We should not move on from the Mueller report. Believe it or not, Ben, Minority Leader Chuck Schumer agrees with you.
Great minds think alike.
Schumer replied to McConnell on the Senate floor. He accused the Majority Leader of, quote, whitewashing. Here's the quote from Schumer to McConnell, quote, and I don't have a good I don't have a good Schumer impression. I just got McConnell, so I'm just going to do as regular old Dennis here. Okay. So here's Schumer to McConnell, quote, he wants to move on. It's sort of like Rich Nixon saying, let's move on at the height of the investigation of his wrongdoing. Of course he wants to move on. He doesn't want to move on. He wants to run away from these awful facts, foreign interference in our election, and a president who is lawless. It is not done. This is very serious stuff.
It is serious stuff. And listen, I admit, as a lifelong reporter, I'm a junkie for news, and I want to know what went down. So I would have the same attitude if it was a Democrat. Like, let's get to the bottom of this one, see what they were up to in 2016. But that's me speaking as a reporter junkie. The Richard Nixon analogy is apropos because folks old enough to remember realize it was a much different time in 1973 and 74 when Congress was closing in on Richard Nixon through all the investigations of his wrongdoing through Watergate. Because in those days, believe it or not, there were actually Republicans who defended the investigation, were leading the charge. Lowell Weicker, the senator from Connecticut, comes to mind. And similarly, there were Democrats who stood by the president. How about that? There were presidents, Southern Democrats, most of them, who stood by Richard Nixon and said, this is unfair. And this is wrong. So we had more of a bipartisan spirit, to both sides of the debate back in 1973, 74. And now, of course, it's just Democrats calling for an investigation, Republicans stonewalling and say he's innocent, And they want to investigate the investigators. So in some ways, we've devolved from 1974. We're not as good as we were back then.
And we got a final update here. The White House has informed Congress that it has ordered former counsel Don McGahn. I always say McGahn. I don't know why. Don McGahn not to hand over documents subpoenaed by a congressional committee investigating the findings of special counsel Robert Mueller.
Okay, yeah, there's a big surprise there. One more time. Don't give away any information. Conceal. As they try to rally their base against knowing anything about what went down in 2016 and what the president was up to. By the way, I just saw the story in the paper today. Michael Cohen going to federal prison yesterday. We were talking about that with Jim Coogan. Somehow or other, he was Trump's lawyer, and he was doing bad things on behalf of Trump. He's going to federal prison, and Trump's still flying around in Air Force One. Interesting how these things develop.
Lots to talk about with our 2:30 guest, ace attorney Jim Coogan. He talks all things Trump. Boy, hope he brought his lunch today. That's all I'm saying.
No, he's ready to go.
Now, of course, we'll keep you posted on these stories as today's program rolls along. We're moving on. We're going to talk some local news here. It's time for What Else is News. And hey, if you still think that Governor JB is full of BS when it comes to legalizing recreational marijuana use in Illinois, well, you must not have read the news from over the weekend. Pritzker is not playing around. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and state lawmakers laid out details over the weekend for legalizing recreational marijuana in Illinois. By the way, just an observation, you can tell that none of these lawmakers actually smoke weed, or at least not on the regular, because there has been no procrastination whatsoever in putting this all together. Let a few true stoners in on this. Oh, yeah, this will never get done. So way to go. Those who don't really smoke weed on the regular, getting it done here. But
Hold on, I got to defend my marijuana smokers out there. There's a lot of reefer heads who are like...
we'll get it tomorrow. We'll take care of that tomorrow. It's always tomorrow. I'm in that category.
Whoa, revelation.
But
wait, what's a nickel bag then? If you know so much about reefer...
It's barely anything.
Oh, is it legal?
Yeah, I guess it will be soon. Right. But the language is now in a bill. The ball continues to roll. We'll go through the details in moments, but for all of our Illinois listeners out there who are currently smoking marijuana illegally, if I could talk to all of you just one-on-one for a moment, that'd be great. Hey, please reach out to your weed dealer, and please do not leave them hanging. They've helped you throughout the years here, so help them out with some resume tips, job interview tips, something, because they may be out of a gig sooner than expected. This message brought to you by the Ben Joravsky Show, by the way.
That was really nice of you looking out for the weed dealer.
Gotta help out your weed dealer, man. He's been helping you out. They're about to make this, all legal.
Telling you, reach out and touch someone.
Oh, okay. I don't know about that, Joe Biden. All right, the following comes from the Illinois political bulldogs at Illinois Politico.
They don't smoke reefer. They're too busy working.
Oh, I know. I'm telling you. Although Illinois Democrats control both chambers, a few of them are on the fence and mirror the views of those in law enforcement and religious communities who worry about you, okay?
They're so worried.
And moaning over there.
I'm worried for them because they're worried.
Although Illinois Democrats control both chambers, a few of them are on the fence and mirror the views of those in law enforcement and religious communities who worry about illegal sales and any addictive nature of marijuana. Lawmakers have made an unusual step of introducing the bill first in the Senate rather than presenting companion bills in both chambers. That's likely because the Senate has been the friendlier venue for marijuana legislation than the House, which is expected to be a bit bigger hurdle. Now to the details that were laid out over the weekend. Illinois residents could possess up to an ounce, 30 grams of marijuana.
Told ya.
And non-residents, half an ounce, 15 grams.
Wait, hold on. You mean they're giving a break? Okay, let me understand. So they're saying if you live in the state of Illinois, you can have 30 grams.
Yep.
But if you live in the state of Indiana and you come to Illinois, you can only have 15 grams.
Yep.
Why?
Not sure.
What's the difference? Oh, it's a special bonus for living in Illinois. If your attitude is that reefer is bad, why would you want people in Illinois to get more of it? Why not just let the Hoosiers have more of it or the cheeseheads? They're not thinking this through, D. You know why? Because they're probably up all night drinking, not smoking reefer. Isn't it funny that the people that are writing the laws that regulate marijuana claim they don't smoke, but they drink? Why should they get a say in this? I think they should limit the lawmakers to the people who smoke reefer. That's what I think, D.
So 30 grams for those who live in Illinois, 15 grams for non-residents
Makes no
of
sense.
Illinois. So if you're in Indiana and you got about 29 grams, well, you got a lot of smoking to do if the police come, okay?
No, smoke at the border and then cross. When you're in Gary, pull over, smoke half of it, and then go take the Skyway into the city.
Well, that sounded like lyrics from a country song. Adults could have up to 5 plants if they're locked in a room, out of public view, and approved by the landowner.
Wait a minute, time out. You can have 5 plants if they're out of public view?
Yeah.
So you can't put them in the window?
No, it can't be like, hey, look at my pot leaves, everybody.
Okay, I see. This is the things they spent all these months thinking about. If it's in the window, I guess someone could see it and get high. I don't know.
Permit fees would range from $100,000 for growers and $30,000 for retailer. Lower fees for applicants from communities affected by convictions in the war on drugs. Permit approval would be granted to current large-scale commercial growers who serve the medical cannabis community, as well as small craft growers who fall under the minority business umbrella. A low-interest loan program is envisioned to help defray costs for business owners from low-income and or drug-affected communities trying to gain licenses.
Well, time out. If you're going to give out low-interest loans, you got to change some of these banking policies. It's very difficult for people who are legally selling reefer, medical reefer, to get bank service. They can't even write checks. Last I looked, remember we talked about that with KC, Kelly Cassidy, state representative, north side of Chicago, knows more about legalizing reefer than anyone in the world. And so they got to get the banks to open up their business with the marijuana dealers, legal marijuana dealers, and that'll require some change at the federal level with the Trump administration. So
the bill's sweeping criminal and social justice considerations include plans to use an automated system to expunge roughly 800,000 marijuana convictions and allow those with pot convictions to work in the legal cannabis industry. And when it comes to the workplace, employers would still be able to have workplace drug policies and maintain, quote, reasonable policies for testing, smoking, consumption, storage, or use of cannabis in the workplace.
all right, hold it. Time out on the playing field. Stop right there. Now, see, they're not getting specific what they call reasonable testing. Testing for marijuana, that is one of the most perverse things we got going. And whenever you talk about marijuana, for instance, I think it was, who was it? There's a football player, I can't remember which one, just recently got suspended again for being tested, smoking marijuana, having marijuana in his system. Why? WHY. Why is our football players being tested for marijuana? I don't get it. I mean, you test football players for steroids or baseball players for steroids because that gives them an advantage in the game of baseball. But why would you test them for marijuana? Does that give them an advantage? Let me ask you this, D. If you had a baseball team, would you want your batter high? Do you think it would be an advantage, like he could see the ball more clearly? Would that be an advantage to the batter or to the pitcher for that matter? I would think it would be a disadvantage. Although, interesting enough, there's a bowling team in my bowling league called the High Rollers.
Yeah.
I may have mentioned this.
They earned that nickname, by the way. I've bowled with this team.
The High Rollers earned the nickname because they consume a lot of reefer before they bowl, but they're notorious for being really slow. Guys, you want to come bowl now? Huh? We're at the bar talking.
What?
So I cannot tell that the high rollers have any greater advantage over anybody else by virtue of smoking all that reefer. So it doesn't give it an advantage in bowling that I could see smoking marijuana. I cannot see why it would give it an advantage in baseball. So we've gone way overboard with testing people. And so they're putting that language in there. I don't like that language. I think there's too much drug testing going on in our country.
And if any of the high rollers are listening to this podcast, hey guys, speed it up. Come on, good Lord. Yeah. No, I substitute for Ben's bowling team sometimes. Well, I haven't done it in a long time, but
great bowler, by the way.
I'm okay. We played against the high rollers, and good Lord, we were there till like 1 a.m. Those guys are getting stoned in the back.
High rollers are notoriously slow when it comes to bowling.
Now, we already know that JB is for it, all right? In fact, he's probably got a water bong pack ready to rip in celebration. But what about our other top political figures in Illinois? What are they saying? Mm-hmm. Well, holy cow, it's a rare moment in Illinois politics. Illinois Democratic Speaker Mike Madigan gave a press conference. We actually had an interview with Madigan a while back, but he gave a press conference. Ben, you mentioned this earlier, but according to Madigan, there are still some aspects of the bill that need to be hammered out.
There are some very controversial aspects or sections to the proposal. So, number one, there'll be a proposal for expungement of criminal records. And the argument is that, yes, people were involved in activity which was violative of the criminal statute at the time, but we're changing that criminal statute, and we ought to retroactively simply say in the statute that there'll be a forgiveness for what happened in the past, and the records will be expunged. The key on that issue is how far do you go in terms of the expungement. If you're talking about some teenager that was doing drugs and was only guilty of possession, that's one thing. If you're talking about people that were actually in the business, they were dealers, and you want to expunge those records, that's a different case.
Okay, we learned why he doesn't give press conferences. Good Lord, that was boring.
I tell you what, if I'm ever up late at night, can't get to sleep, I'm going to listen to that Michael Madden. Come on, Mike, pick up the pace a little bit. By the way, I thought my recitation of the quote was better than his. Actually, we got Maya in the studio. I'm going to ask her about this in a little while, but I am completely, totally in disagreement with Mike Madigan. Mike Madigan and I do not see eye to eye on this. Again, the essential point is this. We are slowly, very slowly, coming to the acknowledgement that the war on drugs was wrong, that we destroyed a lot of innocent lives, communities, and families, and we set ourselves back a long way. There are a lot of people locked up, families destroyed because people in their families were locked up because of this insane war on drugs. So we got to let it go, people, all right? You can't just say, well, it's okay for some kid to smoke reefer, but it's wrong for someone to sell him the reefer. You're still punishing the person that sold him the reefer. If you're now recognizing that the war on drugs was wrong and it was silly to punish people for smoking marijuana, then you shouldn't continue to punish people for selling them the marijuana. And that's what I think on that one, D.
All right, and finally, we have a quote from Chicago Mayor-elect Lori Lightfoot. She has concerns with recreational legalization of marijuana as well. Let's see here. Before the legislation was made public, Mayor-elect Lori Lightfoot told Illinois Politico that she hopes the legislation includes enough safeguards to make sure we're not opening floodgates to give kids and teenagers access to marijuana.
Yeah, that would go without saying, but that's something a politician has to say. I'm very concerned about the children. And so, you know, you must be
saying the mayor shouldn't go, hey, guys, let's just get stoned. Let's have a party.
But it kind of goes without saying, you know, it's like Dudley Do-Right stuff, you know. Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. No one ever said sell it to kids. It's like saying, oh, I think that alcohol should be made available to 10-year-olds. There's a lot of people who drink, buy alcohol all the time, make lots of money selling alcohol, working in the liquor industry. Do any of them talk about selling to 10-year-olds? No, but when it comes to reefer, I'm very concerned. But, you know, it's like I said, it's something that a mayor has to say. And even if it really is kind of meaningless. We'll see what Maya has to say about this. I know she's got a lot of ideas about this. She's ready to talk right now, but we're going to hold back.
All right, let's check in on Madigan, see if he's still going. Okay, still going.
They would argue.
Good Lord, guy. All
All
right, but just like that, you're down the know of what's going on in Illinois. Oh, Pat Rod asked me to break the bong out. Hold on. What's up, Pat Rod?
Okay.
And now you'll have an answer the next time someone asks you, hey, what else is news?
All right, let me tell you something. That Michael Madigan, all right?
All right.
And Michael
Oh, you
Cohen.
mean this guy?
The medical team
Oh,
is
Lord.
not supportive of the
He's just warming up, D. Anyway, Michael Madigan, Michael Cohen, and Michael Anderson, a kid I went to high school with, all agree.
Hey, Michael.
You did a great job. Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. Maya's sitting here ready to go. We'll bring her on when we return.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Did you know that 40% of the people in Illinois opt to be cremated? Well, it's true. And Chicagoland Cremation Options honors their wishes by providing cremation services directly to the general public. Chicagoland Cremation Options provides an affordable, ethical, and easy cremation arrangement, whether in person or online. Save thousands and streamline the process by going directly to Chicagoland Cremation Options. It's a family-owned business operated by my good friend, Douglas Klein. Here's how you reach them. ChicagolandCremationOptions.com. One more time. ChicagolandCremationOptions.com.
It's Chicagoland's adult entertainment playground. It's the world-famous Admiral Theater, 3940 West Lawrence Avenue. The Admiral is homegrown from Chicago, and it's the most conveniently located club in all of the city. 15 minutes from the O'Hare Airport in downtown Chicago Loop. Voted Chicago's best strip club, the Admiral has showgirls galore and a variety of adult entertainment shows. The world-famous Admiral Theater, open every day from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m., 3940 West Lawrence Avenue. For events, showtime, and other information, visit AdmiralX.com. Must be 18 years of age or older to enter.
Commercial break over. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Maya is just loving this song. And yes, Maya, we are on TV. All right,
Hi.
wave to the camera. Man, I know you were biting at the bit there when you were listening to Michael Madigan.
Oh, yeah.
Going
Let
on.
me tell you something. That guy was definitely going to have the last laugh. You know what? This is an art form. Making politics seem boring is truly an art form. Mike Madigan, who, I mean, say what you will about the guy, that's a man who understands power and how to stay in power. And that press conference is a perfect example of how, like, people will just keep scrolling, switch the channel, close the window on their computer browser, and this is how the guy hangs on to power. He makes you think that he's boring, that this is all boring, that there's nothing here to see.
Wait, time out. So you think
this
he
is
does
power
that?
in action.
You think he does that on purpose as opposed to that's just who he is?
Well, I mean, okay, maybe it's just who he is, and so he was extraordinarily lucky to have this brilliant combo of those kinds of ambitions and that kind of personality. Or, I mean, it could be an act. Doesn't matter. The effect is the same.
Yeah, it's all coming together. All right, let's talk about the merits of what he was saying. Let's talk about legalizing reefer. I don't know, have we ever had a conversation? I can't remember if we had ever a conversation on the air about legalizing marijuana. I presume you, of course, are for the legalization of marijuana. I'm making that assumption.
Correct assumption.
A correct assumption. And I really have a lot of issues with the way, you may have heard me going on about this, get your thoughts on this, the way we still cling to these notions that there's something abhorrent about marijuana, something frightening or scary. We can't let go. We can't acknowledge that the war on drugs was wrong, and that by making marijuana use seem so horrendous and horrific, we ruined a lot of lives. You know what I'm saying? We can't acknowledge that. It's almost as though if we acknowledge that, then we're culpable for what we did as a society, as a greater society.
No, I think we can acknowledge that. It's just when it comes to actually like making some sort of reparations for that, that's when people get all uncomfortable. And it's, to be honest, like it's kind of interesting, like where does the objection come from? Because I'm pretty sure that like in your, in a lot of communities, whether they were hit hard by the war on drugs or not, I feel like it's pretty well established now that policing marijuana the way that it has just been a colossal stupidity, a huge waste of time and money, extremely, it's very, very harmful to African Americans who have been hit the hardest by this type of policing. And, I frankly have not encountered in quite some time anybody who says that legalizing marijuana is a bad idea, or that like the war on drugs is stupid, or that the war on drugs was a good idea. The thing that I think we see is a hesitancy around talking about reparations for the harm that was caused through these very racist policies. But why are politicians like Madigan or Lori Lightfoot hesitant to, not hedge around this, like hesitant to just come out and say, you know what? Yeah, we need to like deal with all these people who are in prison or, currently or have been for these drug charges, whether it's for selling marijuana or using marijuana. We need to, issue some sort of pardons. We need to, expunge people's records. We need to give them certificates of innocence or whatever, right? I think that the thing that they're afraid of isn't that people are going to say, oh, but like marijuana is scary and dangerous, and this is like encouraging marijuana use or anything like that. I think what the political calculation around that must be that they're worried about how it's going to look for them to appear to want to give away something to black people. I think that's what they're worried about.
Well,
I think that they are worried about backlash against which that would be real. That we have a very well documented history of that in this country. Anytime you have anything that looks like any sort of benefits to black people that are going to, mitigate some of the harms our society and government have unleashed on their communities for generations, like that politicians are very reticent to deal with that, and because they're afraid to hear it from their constituents that, oh, like this is somehow this is something unfair. This is some sort of unfair giveaway to people who don't deserve it.
Well, right now the law is such that marijuana has effectively been legal for white people for a long time. When I first, I know I've told you this before, I've said it on the air, I don't know if you were here, when I first really started focusing on the legalization of marijuana as an issue, something I would write about, it was triggered by happenstance where I was riding my bike down the street one day and I saw a large congregation of teenagers, most of them white, openly smoking reefer on the corner, just walking down the street, and they went to, I forget what they called it, it was like Pot Fest or something like that, right out in the open. Pot Fest or something. It was something like that. Reefer Fest. I don't. In Lincoln Park. It was in the middle of the day. I'm like, dang! I thought this was illegal.
I've missed Pot Fest every year. Where is it?
So
really not conducive to stoner culture.
No.
Something that you have to be somewhere to
Grass Fest.
Grass Fest.
Grass.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, grazing in the grass. Anyway, in the meantime, Mick Dumke and I were writing stories about the thousands of black people who were arrested and routinely brought through circuit court here in Chicago for possession, and it was a way of just harassing black people. Meanwhile, these white kids were walking to Pot Fest or whatever it was. So yeah, you're absolutely correct. There's always been there's always been this double standard when it comes to marijuana, racial double standard. But there are people who are saying slow down. Today's Sun-Times, State Representative Marty Moylan from Des Plaines, I gave it a French pronunciation, is imploring Illinoisans to join him in throwing a wrench in the growing momentum to legalize marijuana in Illinois. Quote, there's other ways to generate revenue, not on the backs of our kids and young adults who are going to be addicted and sucked into this. I'm just reading this quote.
I guarantee you that guy's kids are smoking marijuana.
Okay. The views expressed by Maya, those are Maya, not the Ben Joravsky Show.
No, I mean this is like, I don't know much about Des Plaines, but I'm guessing that he's got quite a few conservative constituents who, yeah, this is all pandering. This is all pandering to. There's like a growing. My understanding of this landscape, kind of in Illinois, the politics around this issue is that obviously you've got Chicago, big metropolitan center, much more liberal. There's all kinds of reasons why we need revenue. We want to tax and regulate this so the government can make money off selling marijuana. We don't want to deal with the administrative costs of criminalization of marijuana. It's like too expensive and it's a dumb waste of money and time to police this, to prosecute this. We even have maybe some benevolent liberal kind of like wanting to make reparations for the war on drugs, right? And then there's this whole other contingent of people in the state, like rural folks who want to be able to grow it, who see this as a potential source of revenue for agriculture, that are also pushing their legislators to legalize for that reason. And then I'm get this like Des Plaines, slice of Illinois. I think this is just like this kind of suburban sort of conservative more conservative leaning landscape where they kind of are on neither side of the issue in terms of like, well, we need to like generate money by harvesting this stuff, or we need to like save money by not policing it anymore. This is just like a political jousting.
Yeah, well, there's
this is probably pandering to his constituents.
Pandering is the key word because there's still a group of voters who are reluctant to sign on to the legalization of marijuana. And I think when I hear Michael Madigan talk about it, we played that clip that,
does that shock you?
No, Michael Madigan is a very strategic political operative, let's be honest. I don't know if whenever I hear him discuss an issue, no matter what the issue is, I always like translate it into political operations and political strategy. So I don't know what Michael Madigan's real beliefs on marijuana are. I don't know if he has any.
He probably doesn't care.
Probably doesn't.
He probably doesn't care.
For all I know, he loves the Grateful Dead and he's smoking reefer every night.
Right now,
as we speak, with that apple. He's, there's some guys.
It's actually an apple bong.
It's an apple bong. Look at Maya knowing what an apple bong. I tell you, these reader-writers know their stuff. So for all I know, he smokes reefer through that apple every day. But strategically, he's thinking about his caucus members, his Democrats, who may have a hard time signing on to legislation, as you point out, that like looks weak on drug dealers. So you notice he differentiates between a teenager who smoked reefer and a drug dealer who sells reefer, even though I don't see a strong distinction there.
Yeah, it's probably another teenager. Like, listen, let's be real. Like the days of like, I don't know. I feel like the money in drugs these days is like much more related to in the opiate kind of business, right? Like drug cartels are like this is not like the Mexican drug cartels, for example, right, whose big business is like heroin, meth, like those cartels. If you all watch Narcos, this is sort of the story that it tells in this latest season, is about how these like the Sinaloa cartel like started out as a marijuana cartel, and that was like hugely profitable, but then they got they got this idea of like moving into cocaine, and the money there was just like astronomically higher. It was the business changed over time. I mean, the notion that we have these like big kingpins running these sophisticated business operations based on marijuana, I think this like very outdated. Like I think that the drug business, the criminal kind of side of the drug business, where there's like these organized crime rings around it, like I don't get the sense that they're very focused on marijuana anymore. That's not where the money is as much. So yeah, I mean, these are like if you buy weed on the street in Chicago, like it's probably coming somewhere at the top, like wherever it's growing, that's under the control of probably some kind of, a bigger organization or whatever. But the point is that those people, if they were ever caught, like they were prosecuted by the feds. Like those people are like the whatever kingpins that stood at the top of these organizations. Like that's not who's sitting in like the state penitentiary today. That's for getting busted for running a marijuana ring. Like those people, like the DEA was on those people, and it's kind of a separate conversation around doing reparations around that. But that's like not for the state of Illinois to be talking about. The people who went to prison in the state prison system for selling drugs are like low level people.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
So yeah, like you said, like this like differentiation between the user and the seller when it comes to marijuana. I mean, probably arguably when it comes to any drug is like, it's like
it's a meaningless
manufactured.
Thing. It's a meaningless thing if you think it through the way you did and analyze the way you did. But I think in the minds of many voters, there is some kind of distinction. Well, we cannot let a drug dealer get off scot-free, and that's what Michael Madigan is driving him. I don't think Michael Madigan has thought through the logistics of what he's saying. I don't think he's viewing it logically the way you are.
No, he probably did think it through. He just wants to not say anything. He doesn't want to make any firm commitments to anything. He wants to signal that he still cares about, not letting drug dealers off easy. But what I heard from what you played, that's not a commitment of any sort or anything. He's literally saying, well, there's this thing, and then there's this other thing.
Yeah, right. That's true. That's vague enough to get anything through the legislature.
Right.
Or what he'll do is the favorite Mike Madigan tactic. In order to let it through, he'll get something from Pritzker. I don't know what.
Unrelated.
Yeah,
something totally unrelated. Right.
He'll get funding for the 13th Ward.
Yeah.
Somehow or other, he'll extract. Oh, so you want that marijuana bill through? Huh? Well, I happen to have X, Y, Z.
It sounds like you guys want to hear Madigan again. Let's do it. Oh, my. Yeah, never mind. That went bad.
There was some drums going to the back of Madigan. I'm telling you, man.
Broke your box, man.
The other thing on our list of things to talk about, moving away from marijuana for the moment, Maya, was the concept of liberal fragility. We were going to talk about this last week, and then we ran out of time.
Yeah.
And we're almost running out of time this week, so I want to get back to it.
Oh, my God, yeah.
It's a favorite topic of ours. We could probably talk about it a million times.
Yeah.
And you just
But I think ever more salient now that we've got the new mayor and council coming in.
Let's talk
soon.
about how it erupted as an. First of all, explain the concept and.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so this sounds more complicated than it is. Basically, the thing that stuck in my craw recently was just like talking to some folks, white liberals especially, who are very excited about Lori Lightfoot's tenure. People who voted for her and are just like so excited for this supposed new era starting in Chicago. And that's, whatever, that's fine. Like their candidate won. I don't understand how someone could be so personally invested in a politician that they're genuinely like so earnestly excited. But what's even like more nonsensical than that is the defensiveness that I encounter whenever I bring up any kind of criticism, skepticism, or cynicism about Lori Lightfoot to these people. Like it's like, I get the sense that people just want to feel that they made the right and good choice, and they don't want to have to think about it again. Like and it's not like for some, when someone says to you, yeah, like I don't know if Lori Lightfoot is gonna like make good on her promises. That I don't know why that feels like a personal indictment to someone. And you talk to these people all the time, Ben. Maybe you have a better insight into this.
They're always mad at me.
They're all like it's like why okay, so you voted for this person, you thought that was the best person out of a choice of 2, right? Maybe you thought it was the best person out of the choice of whatever 16 initially, but some of these people also had other choices in the first round. But it's like I feel like our kind of baseline attitude towards people who wield power should be like questions, skepticism, trust needs to be earned, not just given, and then you see if it pans out. Like, I don't think it's bad faith to be skeptical of a politician's promises. I don't think that's entering into a relationship with a politician in bad faith. They're the ones that should be eager to prove to us that they're about what they said they were.
Yeah. Well, you're thinking like a reporter. You're thinking like a journalist now. You're not thinking like a Chicagoan. This is a very Chicago. I think it's broader than Chicago, but there's something very Chicago. Listening to you, what you're saying. I went through this with Rom lovers, and they're out there still.
God, is anyone still cop to that? Jesus, that's got to be like a real social embarrassment.
Oh no, there's quite a few of them out there, but it was really prevalent with Daley. I used to get really heated emails and letters and calls from people like, how could you, what's wrong with you? Like there was something wrong with me. I mean, Mayor Daley has saved this city. And it's funny because now Mayor Rahm, the headline of Sun-Times, Rahm leaves city better off than he found it.
Oh my God, right. And now he's having these like 4 sessions about his legacy.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm like, wait a minute. If Daley saved the city, why did it need to be saved again by Rahm? Chicagoans, please explain that to me.
Yeah.
But Chicagoans really want to believe in their mayors and the people that they elect. And so I think
they're really like Russians in that way.
Explain that.
Well, there's in Russia you find a lot of people who are like very much like very gung ho, for example, fans of Vladimir Putin, but it's not like, I think the way that this gets sort of presented in American or Western media is that people are too afraid to like criticize Putin, and that like that's why that you have this like appearance of that he enjoys wide popular support. But like people are, it's not as much that. I mean, there's certainly that. There's certainly like folks that are like afraid to criticize the government. There's this like long history of, surveillance, of like a kind of crushing of any kind of opposition in the country through decades. But there's also like just tons of people who sincerely believe that this president has made the country better. You'll be hard pressed to find anyone in Russia who lives materially in a worse off condition now than they did in like 1995 when like things were just really falling apart, even though Western observers tend to kind of look at the 90s as this moment of like a flourishing of democracy in Russia. Like for a lot of regular people in Russia, it was a time of like just like a hellish time when like you couldn't find food to eat, when like there was just like rampant criminal activity everywhere, when some people were able to get rich, and there were like newspapers that there was freedom of the press, but like for a lot of people that's not worth much if they like couldn't afford to feed themselves or they like couldn't feel safe on the streets. So my point being is that like things have changed. It's come at this like extreme cost of like a curtailing of all kinds of rights and liberties and opportunities. But on the other hand, like people are materially living better, and they think that their country has improved. They think that their country is respected, and and critics of Putin are just like not giving him a chance, or like not, it's the same defensive attitude that like people just kind of believe that this person is like taking care of us. We see that the environment improving, and this is what you pointed out when I brought this up about the liberals. It's like Chicago has worked for these people. To them, the city has improved. The planters with the flowers on Michigan Avenue, and the lake, the riverfront development. That's the cleaning up of the Chicago River so they can kayak on it. The destruction of public housing so they don't have to look at those ugly towers when they drive up, the Dan Ryan. For them, Chicago has become a much more beautiful place.
But I think Chicago has always worked for this constituency, worked for them during Harold Washington's years, it worked for them during Daley's years, and it worked for them during Rahm's years. I sense, and vehemently disagree with me if you want, which I know you will, if you choose. I sense that even the lakefront liberal types were turning against Rahm. And I sense that was probably something that was revealed to him in polls that he and his backers took way back when in September. I just have this feeling.
Well, yeah,
that
I mean,
even
because
they,
these people,
even they turned against
right.
him.
And these people are now like gung ho Lori Lightfoot fans. Of like they're not these. If you're having the conversation with them now, like they're not going to be in the same breath saying Rahm was great and saying how great Lori's going to be. Yeah, like now the posh thing to do is to talk shit about Rahm, you know. But I don't know. I just find it like. Yeah. This like it's like a very strangely naive attitude that people have that like of like assuming, oh, we need to give this person the benefit of the doubt. Like let's give them the keys to the city, literally the most powerful position in our local government, and then like our attitude should be, oh yeah, okay, they're gonna do well with this. Like that's literally not how the world works. Like in most every other circumstance, like people have to earn trust.
Yeah.
They have to earn power and. Winning an election is not the same thing as like making good on promises.
All right, now let me try to get you to go counter.
Okay.
All right. So you and I could talk for hours about all the things that Mayor Rahm did wrong with his tenure as mayor. All right. Mm-hmm. So he's leaving office. So find your inner "I love you, Rahm" that must exist somewhere. Maybe not. Can you think of something Rahm did that is positive for the city of Chicago?
Well, he supported the restaurant industry quite a bit. There's small business, a lot of small business owners. People who are in the restaurant, brewery kind of sector say that he's been good to them, that he's been a big booster for making Chicago a destination, for people to come and know that this is not just a place for, excellent ketchupless hot dogs and Schlitz, but like,
not that there's anything wrong with either.
great craft beer and world-class restaurants,
So he's brewery friendly.
Yeah, he's brewery friendly, he's restaurant friendly, he's theater friendly. I think that he's got a lot of friends in the theater community. But again, all of this stuff is like, yes.
Daley
right.
was,
but I think you have to, at some point, like, I don't know how you can absorb those things that are, good about, like those are things that are comparatively easier to be good on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this is very different. Like I don't know how you can hold that and say that that's his legacy and that's what he deserves praise for, when at the same time, like the conditions of life in the poorest neighborhoods in the city are like they still suck. Mm-hmm. Like if they've gotten worse in a lot of ways. And all he's ever done is like, finger point, increase the police presence rather than increasing social services in those places. And, and then, wax poetic at these press conferences about how people just don't have the right values anymore and they just need to be coming forward and reporting who's doing the shooting. Like, ask somebody in South Shore what Mayor Rahm has done for them.
All right.
I feel like that's a more important opinion than my talking about his restaurants.
Well, speaking of which, Mark Sims is in the studio. I'm going to ask him these questions too. He's warming. He's doing stretching exercises.
There's a lot of alcohol here. He's come with a lot of alcohol.
No, Mark Sims does just not come, without bringing something. One of our favorite guests, but I'll ask him.
Wait, did he bring weed?
Is it weed-infused alcohol?
I don't know what it is that he brought, but I'm sure it's good. But it's so funny listening to you, Maya, because you're a lot like me. I ask you, say something nice about Rahm. You start off saying like he was brewery friendly, and then
but it's like
but then you end up saying it's like me. Whenever I try to say something nice about Rahm, invariably I end up ripping the guy. But I understand it's very difficult, and so maybe that'll be your next assignment I'm not allowed to say what your next assignment is. I'm just going to tease. Mm-hmm. Big story coming from Maya.
Big story next week.
Next week, and we'll figure out When she can come on to talk about it's going to be
Yep.
big, and I am looking forward to it, but I'm not allowed to talk about it. So we'll end this conversation now. Mark Sims is coming on. We'll have more political talk with Mark. Thank you very much, Maya. It's great as always. We'll be right back after this.
Today's Ben Joravsky Show was brought to you in part by Chicago Architecture Center. Discover the breadth and majesty of Chicago's architecture on a Chicago Architecture Center bus tour. From bungalows to Bauhaus, our expert docents will share the fascinating stories behind our city's architecture. Book your tour at architecture.org/tours. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm actually on a bus tour right now. Oh my, look at that wonderful piece of architecture. Last week on the Fran Spielman Show.
Hi, everybody. I'm Fran Spielman, and with me is Alderman Scott Wagisback. And you could be, maybe, the chairman of the City Council Finance Committee.
That's a possibility. I think problem is that some people look at this finance committee chair position as a way to, have a lot of jobs. I mean, I've heard that out there. It's very simple, a simple approach to look at it. I'm looking at it as how are we going to really reform the city council? And if we're going to do it right, as the mayor wants to do, as she has a mandate from 75% of the people in the city, then we've got to go through and cut a wide swath and make sure that we're looking at every task that's happening in there. What are we supposed to review? If we're talking about reviewing bond documents that come down from the mayor's office or from the CFO, then we need to make sure we have people on staff who are reviewing that and giving us an analysis that either counters or is comparable to what the mayor's office is doing.
It's the Fran Spielman Show, this and every Friday, only at the Chicago Sun-Times website, chicago.suntimes.com.
There are some very controversial aspects or sections to the proposal. So, number one, there'll be a proposal for expungement of criminal records.
All right, you can't get enough of that speech from Madigan. Boy, it's a good one. It's a good one. All right, the Ben Joravsky Show, hour number 2 for your Tuesday, May 7th is moments away. But before we get into that, we would like to thank the following unions for helping bring back the Ben Joravsky Show. First up, the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, not Aerosmith, Local 126 and District 8, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. Thank you once again to those unions for jumping on board and helping bring back the Ben Joravsky Show. And of course, today's show is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. Hour number 2. Wait a minute. All right, let's go. It is Tuesday, May 7th, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. In this hour of the program, it's the return of our dear friend and resident wild man, Mark Sims. And we're talking all things Donald Trump's legal issues. It's going to take a long time with ace attorney Jim Coogan of Dwyer & Coogan. And now your host, man who's got a case of the giggles this afternoon.
No, Mark's just taking notes already. The show hasn't even started.
Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
All right, Mark Sims looking very learned with his glasses on. He's taking
my broken glasses.
Oh, they're
Look at this from the dollar store.
There went that
they can see it on
learned.
TV. They like spectacles now or something.
Yeah. By the way, we're on TV. So
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I got to play to the camera.
Okay,
I was on for like 25 years. I love that damn camera.
he was on for 25 years
Long
in the old days. He interviewed me, and now
One day I'll do something. I don't know.
No.
I'm losing my mojo or something.
By the way, somebody sent me. We'll get it. It's the vintage, and I call it vintage. Mark Sims, Ben Joravsky conversation that took place. I forget how many years ago.
Go to this YouTube, they call it, and type it in. It comes up right up.
Right, but somebody
my
sent
hair
it
was
to me.
black. I had more hair. It was a few years ago.
It was a few years ago, and we were sitting in Hyde Park, and it's a beautiful sunny day. And I had sunglasses on because we were sitting right in the sun.
Yeah, I got TV's all about lighting. Like you said, they got lights here, but not TV lights, but they have lights.
Yeah,
It was fun.
It was fun. It was a good time.
And you were right about OJ.
Did we talk about OJ in that? We did.
I haven't looked at it, but I know we talked about OJ.
Well, I was saying that
and I was babbling about OJ.
You still hadn't let it go, okay?
No, you know how it is, man. See, I've been picked out of a lineup. And I'll tell you that story later on at Belmont and Western. Maybe this show next year I'll tell you that story.
No.
We'll talk. We don't have to.
We'll talk about that when we come back. But D, you have an update for us, young man?
Absolutely, I do, dude. If you wouldn't have said anything about your glasses, I wouldn't even recognize them.
I know.
Yeah, totally. Look at that. Show the camera. Show the camera.
See, the thing broke. You know, I look. It's like. But it's a dollar store. I get another pair
Wait,
for
what's
$1.
the thing called?
Dollar store. Spectacles, right?
No, but what broke on the glasses?
The little arm here. What you call it?
Yeah, I guess the arm.
The arm of the glass.
I know what you call it. Yeah.
Completely broke. That's awesome.
I know, man.
A few things here. First off, find us on social media at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J, Show. Give us a like, follow, share, review. Tell us you hate the show. Whatever you want to do. Just tell your friends, all right? And check out our Benny bonus interviews. That's what I'm calling them, Benny bonus interviews. Well, yeah, we do these every weekend now. I can guarantee, by the way, that no other Chicago podcast has more content than the Ben Joravsky Show. Guarantee it. But anyway, we got content coming out of our ears. 3 bonus interviews are available for you to download. Our first was released on Saturday. It's featuring our dear friend and soon-to-be former host of Chicago Newsroom, Ken Davis. After 9 years, he's calling it quits at the Chicago Newsroom. Ben twisted his arm and got this modest man to reflect on it. It's Remembering Chicago Newsroom with Kenny D. Ken Davis.
Oh, that was a great interview. Yes, and he was modest, and he was Ben, no, do I have to? And I sit down, and we started talking, and Kenny D has been covering politics in this town for a long time, going back to the 70s. Man knows more about radio, Mark Sims, than anyone I know. Kenny D loves radio, loves talking about newsmakers, and so that was a lot of fun talking to him.
On Sunday, we released our interview with West Virginia gubernatorial candidate Stephen Smith. A little out of our realm there in the Ben Joravsky Show.
That was good.
Yeah.
That was damn good.
Thank you, sir.
What's that guy's name again?
Stephen Smith.
That was real good.
Thank you, sir. I
People
appreciate that.
People should, listen to these bonuses. They're very good.
Yeah, they're different than the regular shows. It's straight up talk.
No curse words.
No curse. Well, sometimes.
Sometimes?
That McKinney one.
Yeah. But Stephen Smith was interesting. He's running for governor in West Virginia. He's a Democrat in a state that has gone Republican over the last few years. And he's running against an incumbent Republican who is a close ally of Donald Trump. And his point, one of the points he makes, is that Democrats should move away from the cult of personality, the cult of celebrity when endorsing a candidate, and should have a candidate who is thinking as an organizer who's part of a larger movement. So, for instance, we talk about Mayor Pete. You know how Democrats have fallen in love with Mayor. Oh, I love Mayor Pete.
I was in South Bend a couple weeks ago, but he was here. Keep going.
Okay.
And Ben, how do you pronounce that guy's last name?
Buttigieg.
There you go. No.
Shake your Buttigieg.
It's Booty Judge, right?
Yeah. Buttigieg.
Booty Judge.
No,
Booty Judge. I'm trying to.
Yeah, okay,
crack
you're
a
that
joke.
guy. Yeah, no.
Okay, let me set it up next time. Booty Judge.
Anyway, so not so much on personalities, more on substance.
All right, and our third and final bonus interview for you to download. The lady needs no introduction, especially here on the Ben Joravsky Show. Around here, we call her Governor Gates. It's the vice president of the Chicago Teachers Union, the one, the only, Stacey Davis Gates.
Oh, man, she was fired up on Friday, and when she came in, I think it was about an hour. Stacey Davis Gates, and you just listened to that.
I listened today. Very good. She's always good.
Yeah.
But I tell you how I really feel about that off camera.
Oh, you don't want to say it on?
Oh no.
You don't want to talk about your teachers?
I just told Maya that I voted for the mayor twice, and I thought she was going to strangle me.
Yeah, dude, we had to hold them back. Oh, hey,
I dropped a bunch of F-bombs. I got scared.
Yeah. Okay.
But she's sweet, but I still get scared.
Yeah.
So
but you gave her the bottle, so she's so good with you.
You
right
got to
now.
give people a bottle.
So go find those interviews. Benny
Very
bonuses. Benny bonuses, we're
Benny
calling them.
bonuses.
Go find them. Chicago.suntimes.com, ChicagoReader.com, or wherever else you find your favorite podcast. We do have an update, a Grandpa Joe update.
Oh.
That's right. Dr. Jill Biden has weighed in.
Oh, okay.
Wife of Joe Biden.
On?
Dr. Jill Biden, wife of presidential candidate
Yes.
Joe, has joined her husband's efforts to put the 1991 confirmation hearings of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, accused of sexual harassment by Anita Hill, which hearing Joe Biden presided over as chairman of the Judiciary Committee, behind him by declaring the episode behind us. It's time to move on, says Jill Biden.
All right. That's nice of Jill Biden to say it's move on. A lot of people are not ready to move on, and that's a perfect transition to young Mark Sims. Was very young in those days. He may not have been old.
Please.
Mark Sims, the pride and joy of Finger High, ladies and gentlemen, from the Roseland community in the south side of Chicago. So I have very strong memories of the Anita Hill. Stop calling it, Ben, the Anita Hill hearings. It was the Clarence Thomas confirmation hearings. The Democrats, in my humble opinion, made a huge mistake. And this is how Democrats play the game, Mark Sims. They let Clarence Thomas get in to replace Thurgood Marshall, a disgrace. A disgrace, I tell you, to replace Thurgood Marshall with Clarence Thomas. You disagree with me already. Go.
I was 1991. Let's move on, per se.
But he's still the Supreme Court justice.
Elections have results. We had 12 years of Reagan, Bush, and this is what you get.
Yeah.
Now, and I don't get into the weeds like Ben does. But you have a president now stacking the courts. You know what I'm saying? Stacking the courts.
All right. So Republicans say they're against affirmative action. All right. They believe that there should be meritocracy. All right. Now, are you telling me that appointing Clarence Thomas to replace Thurgood Marshall was not an act of Republican affirmative action?
Of course, but it's politics, man. You can't get too caught up into it. It is what it is. He needs to retire. How long you been there? Like 25 years? Almost
Clarence
30 years.
1991.
And 2001 be 30 years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he needs to go. But the point is that what do you do? Forget Thomas. We call him. You ever see that picture on Facebook of him and the president? President
Which
Trump.
President Trump? No,
and he looked just like Samuel Jackson and Leonardo DiCaprio. Your movie, Django. Just look up Django picture of president. And because let me tell you something, being an Uncle Tom, I wish I was a good Uncle Tom Negro. I'd have got somewhere. It's good. It's a good strategy to be they Negro. See, like I'm your Negro, to be they Negro. When to this very day, you don't play it like you did back in the day, but when you're a good tap dancing, bootlicking, I'm not saying Justice Thomas is per se, but when you're a tap dancer, people don't like me because I don't like to tap dance. I can kiss booty really, really good when I want to, but I don't like doing it.
Wait, I have a question for you. All those years when I was coming on your show and you were interviewing me, was I your Negro?
No, I'm your Negro now when I start getting on your radio show.
No, I said, but...
No, you were just a guest.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Was I your white guy?
No. Well, if we were on, HBO, I would say I'm your little... with a B. Okay. I'm a little witch.
Oh, I see. But I was somehow when the roles were reversed. What was I?
What I'm saying,
I was just a guest.
You have to be. What did Joe Biden say about the president? He's nice and clean.
Oh, you talk about President Obama.
He says he's nice and clean.
Well, okay.
He say he's a good Negro. We can trust him.
All right, time out. Do we have that audio? Okay, I was doing this all last week. I love doing this. I'm gonna put you in the hot seat, Mark Sims. So this is audio from Joe Biden's first commercial. And Dennis, I'm going to talk until you tell me it's okay to play. Oh, it is okay to play. All right, this is that former president you just alluded to, Mark Sims, and I want to know if this brings back sentimental memories and makes you weep and want to vote for Joe Biden. Go ahead.
This is an extraordinary man with an extraordinary career in public service.
Get ready for the drum.
Somebody who has devoted his entire professional life to service to this country. He revitalized American manufacturing as the head of our middle-class task force.
1, 2.
He fought to make college more affordable. He suited up for our cancer moonshot, giving hope to millions of Americans.
Mark Sims on drums, everybody.
Council has made me a better president. He led our It's On Us campaign against campus sexual assault.
Okay, right. Can I wipe the vomit off my mouth?
Okay, why do you say that?
Because come on, that's just, it's just politics. We don't care. I don't think Joe Biden's going to win. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
All right, here's the thing. I was thinking about this. I was going for a walk on a beautiful day on Saturday, and I was thinking about this. Everybody I paraded through the studio from all different walks of life, different backgrounds, et cetera. I play them that, and I say, do you feel sentimental about Barack Obama? Do you feel nostalgic? And everybody's like, no. And I'm like, I think everybody's in denial, Mark Sims.
No.
You think people have turned the page? Listen, Michelle Obama goes to the United Center selling her books. They sell the place out. People pay like $100.
That's Michelle, though. That ain't Barack.
So you don't think it carries over?
No. It's so many people running for. That's why on that podcast, that great podcast, that bonus people can watch or listen to on the Sun-Times Reader website. Stacey Davis Gates. You about to go into, maybe I missed it, why some black folks or why she don't like Mayor Pete. And that's what I was waiting for. I don't remember her saying about you mentioned Mayor Pete, but I don't think why she mentioned it.
It was typical conversation where Stacey Davis Gates, where we went on so many tangents.
Right.
But we're going to come back to Mayor Pete. But Mayor Pete, mayor of South Bend, and Stacey Davis Gates, I don't know if you know this, her brother is a councilman or whatever they call the alderman, right. And so they've had their issues. Mayor Pete has had his issues with the black community of South Bend. It's silly me. I didn't even know there was a significant black community.
I was there a few weeks ago and I was shocked. Well, it's always a few of us somewhere, right? In Chicago, another 20 years, there'll be a few of us in Chicago because we're still leaving.
There'll be more black people in South Bend than in Chicago.
Which is fine. Yeah. But think about, and you look up, your listeners, look up the root.com, Mayor Pete, root.com. He has a problem with black folks. It's a very good article, the root.com and Mayor Pete. Very good. You should read it. And the thing about it is that I think he addressed this in that article I sent you about his press secretary. Yeah. That was a good article. I don't like to read, but that was a good article.
No, don't listen to a thing Mark Sims is saying. After almost every show, I get an email. You talk about homework, Mark Sims. No, read this.
I just glance at the stuff. You read every word. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Right?
That Robert Carroll thing you sent me was excellent.
No, Robert Carroll was on this other radio station. Yeah. Did you listen to it?
Yes.
I mean, the article. I mean, on air.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah.
It was very good.
Robert Carroll I'm obsessed with Robert Carroll. He's, of course, the great journalist, investigative reporter, is working on his 5th book on LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson. Anyway, I was talking about him last week in his book, Working, which gives the tricks of the trade. All right, so you don't feel, when you look, the Obama, just hearing his voice doesn't stir you in any way?
No, please, no.
Do you look back with regret that you fell for it?
No, you don't even listen to that. That's politics. It's BS.
What do you mean by that?
It's like if you can't impress, what's the old joke? Dennis knows this. When you can't impress people with your intellect, you dazzle them with your BS.
So you think
it's all BS?
So you think Obama, the whole thing was just
he's sincere, but come on, what is he going? He's his vice president for 8 years. What are you going to say? Joe sucks and he likes to fill on women. Wow, vote for that guy. You know, that's not happening.
Well, that's what that tape is actually from when he gave him some kind of medal. That was how he was.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm not president.
So why do people like Michelle Obama and not Barack Obama?
Because Michelle wasn't president. She's not a political figure. It's like Rahm Emanuel. You got half the town likes Rahm and half the town doesn't like Rahm. He's a political figure. Period.
So in other words, she gets a pass because
she gets a pass, of course.
She didn't have to make any
she didn't send nobody to war. She didn't like a lot of people still mad at Obama. I mean, there's people I know who are mad at Obama because he didn't lock up the Wall Street fat cats. What do you expect him to do, right? This is how it works. We lock up poor people in Chicago. Next time I tell you that story about me being picked out of the lineup.
Oh, talk about that.
No.
Wait, why?
I'd rather talk about, Stacey Davis Gates, the school crime, and Lori Lightfoot.
All right,
but the bottom line, I can do the short version was, woman said I robbed her at Clark and Diversey. This is 30 years ago, 1989. As I remember, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
And so this is 10 o'clock at night. Now, that's 30. I'm 30 years younger, of course. And I didn't shave a lot, so I had a little beard. I looked like a lot of people at 10 o'clock at night at Clark and Diversey.
Okay.
But I'm like, hey, I'm innocent. I'm squeaky clean. I'm good as two shoes. I can go down to Belmont and Western to the police station. And he said, you want to go in the lineup? Sure, I'm innocent. And before I know it, she was like this guy. And the police, I'm not going to say that. I think I remember the officer's name. I didn't write this stuff down. But nice Irish cop. He wanted to put me in jail and proceed. But he was cool because I knew he went to my house. Just got married. Just bought a house in 89. I was in squeaky clean. That's what they told me in Ryder Elementary School back in the 1970s. Keep your record clean. Now, I'm not really an angel. I've done some stuff, which I'll tell you off air.
Oh, but no. This is a great
This ain't professional, Father Ben. But the point is that the officer at Belmont Western did let me go home because my record was clean.
Wait, time out. All right, let me understand this. A woman accused you of robbing her.
Yeah.
And you were in a police lineup. at Belmont and Western, which I believe they're tearing down. That's a tangent. No need to go there. Anyway, you're in a police.
They tore down Riverview years ago.
Yeah, it's right near Riverview. right. Okay, Riverview, an old amusement park. You millennials. Anyway, all right. So, how many other people were in the lineup?
Oh, it's funny. You get in this lineup like this room looks like this. That's what the lineup room. And you get against the wall, and you're like, and these dudes come in. Hey, where you get these guys from? You know what I'm saying? And so, but the thing about it is that, just like I was telling you about the police, it wasn't so much about the police union, which I don't want to say anything bad about them on air. But it's like, what's the old song, Miles, that Ice Cube did? He said, the police do what? They serve, protect, and break a brother's neck.
Yeah.
But they said the N-word. So I'm about to say the N-word now.
Yeah.
They serve, protect, and break. Okay.
Yeah, I get you.
I dropped the N-word.
Wait, did we have to say that before? Oh, no, you said that to me on a phone conversation. We were talking about Tim Anderson.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to we need your thoughts on Tim Anderson. But before we go.
before
we go to Tim Anderson, I want to ask you this. So how many people?
I can't remember, like 5 other guys.
And so all black guys?
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember. I can't remember all the details. But it was just, but I'm saying, I was.
So they let you. The lady pointed you out. So
yeah,
that's the
I saw in the glass. She was like, "Yeah, that fool right there."
I thought the glass is supposed to be one way.
Just like shadows, you could see her doing this.
Okay,
that's what I remember. I didn't write details down, but it could. What I'm saying though is that you talking about locking up the brothers with the weed, and come on, this is America, man. Slavery ended, but it really didn't end. 13th Amendment. Y'all read about 13th Amendment and slavery. You know what I'm talking about, right? So it is what it is, and it's only going to change as a certain demographic dies out. Just like right now, Chicago is a majority city council, first time. Mm-hmm. It's been a minority city for many, many years. That's why a lot of the black wars didn't flip a lot. I don't think anybody got flipped in the, I know the young lady in the 15th Ward won. Okay, I forgot her name, Coleman. But I don't.
16th.
16th. Right, the old 15th.
Yeah.
Because that's the Lopez is 15th, right?
Yeah.
See, you know this stuff. But what I'm saying though, the black wars didn't flip.
When you say flip, go from
like
black
dead male. They went from white to Latino.
Oh, you're
Latino,
saying. In other words, when you say flip, do you mean an incumbent voted out, or do you mean
like dead male got voted out? O'Connor got voted out.
Replaced by a white person?
Not even that. Just the old, like my alderman.
You can do it.
Evans, yeah. Thank you, sir. Pull it out.
No, not Evans.
No. Let's go. No.
You're going back in time. You're 21st. You're 21st ward. You have Howard Brookins as your alderman.
Daddy was a state senator. I'm going back. Wait, you good? Damn, you good. That's why you're the man, Ben. But what I'm saying though is that he was in 2 runoffs and he won 2 runoffs.
That's correct.
But the thing about it is that because our community is getting older, that's why the targets are closing, because we have less money, and we have a lot of pilfering and people do steal stuff at the stores, and then a lot of us like me don't want to go to the store because that's where the poor Negroes go to the store at. So we may go to the suburb to the white Target. We like that kind of stuff.
And so the Target closes, but that's about a stream of consciousness by Mark Sims. I forgot where we started.
No, it doesn't matter where we started.
I forgot where we. Oh no, we're back at that.
Jim Coogan's coming in next.
Jim Coogan will be here in about 10 minutes. We'll be talking Trump, but we're not there yet. Belmont and Western, they'll let you go. So the lady picked you out, but this is interesting. The guy just let you go anyway.
No, the police.
They didn't indict you or anything?
No, I tell you, it was the benevolence of the officer. It was his call. But he went to my house because I was coming out of the house one night and I saw the police guy because he left his card in my door, in the door. Mm-hmm. So I saw him come. I backed into the garage and whatnot. I said, "Who's this?" Saw the car as the police. I said, "Oh man, I'm cool. I'm innocent. But it's the bottom. This is America, Ben. You know your country, man. You know where you live.
Yeah.
Right." I'm not, I'm just lucky, okay?
All right, now go back to the question I was going to ask you when Maya was leaving, and that is, she said, ask somebody from South Shore what they
Close
think.
Enough.
Yeah, and you're south of South Shore.
Yeah, really,
and west of South Shore.
Auburn Gresham.
South Shore, of course, is on the lakefront for our geographically challenged listeners. So Mayor Rahm's leaving. You voted for him twice. You're very proud of that. Yeah. You still have your Mayor Rahm T-shirt.
Of course.
Do you feel good about Mayor Rahm's tenure as mayor of Chicago?
No. Next.
Why?
He did I was a limo driver at the time when he was running for mayor. So my thing was this. As a limo driver back then, I wanted somebody to make some rain. See, my mom's from Detroit, like I told you before, so I've seen Detroit. As a kid, it was bustling, then it fell apart. We know why it fell apart. One industry town and a lot of black people, bad combination, right? And the key is black people, and cold weather too. Okay, but the main thing is that this town can empty out really, really quick. We say the state is emptying out, black folks leaving, but this city can empty out very, very quickly because we're here because it's a great place, great lake, and we have jobs. And we don't have no jobs. There's no reason to be here. And so I wanted a mayor that's going to make some rain, and he did boost, corporate stuff because he's a corporatist, and the tourism went up, so I made money. Now, we had enough of that, okay? Now, I met Lori Lightfoot right here in this room.
That is correct.
Which I still tell people about. And she was very sweet. She gave me more minutes than I deserved. And I hope that she will improve public education, especially for black boys. See, Rahm touts the numbers that it's going up. One reason why the scores are going up because black folks are leaving. Yeah. Fewer black boys. The scores go up. Period. End of story. And so I hope she improves public education for black boys, especially, and stop the crime.
Right,
and I think she can do it.
Looking back to your scholarship days, your days as a young scholar at Fenger High School.
Please. I dropped out in 1980. Keep going.
What could Mayor Lori Lightfoot or anybody do to make the schools better for, as you said, put it, black boys?
The number one thing, some people have problems in school because they're dyslexic. They may be autistic. Of course, I know you can do a whole book on it. But if you're fortunate, like Ari Emanuel, who's dyslexic, and his parents, dad was a doctor, they had resources able to get around, and now he makes gazillion dollars. But especially when you're low income, even probably white or low income, that you don't get screened or diagnosed, whatever they call it, evaluated for dyslexia, autism, a lot of different issues. So you don't have those support. I think Stacey Davis Gates will say wraparound services, right? And so there's a lot of problems. And then sometimes people they have to stabilize home. When you paycheck to paycheck, and believe me, I know what it means to be paycheck to paycheck. All you think about is survival. You don't think about putting your kids through school, going to college, even getting their grades. Then you have some parents are just indifferent in a good way. Because some people think it's the teacher's responsibility for that child to read, which is insane. So the number one to improve the school is you have to improve the culture in certain neighborhoods. It's a culture where it's okay to be cool. It's okay to be Urkel. It's okay to be Carlton, right? It's okay to be square. And so, even when my kids were school, they were still talking about, my kids was kind of teasing saying people like they were straight A students, and they got a couple of B's, and me and the wife just go crazy. We don't play B's, right? Because no. But what I'm saying,
you got mad at your kid if what I'm saying,
we never whipped our children. But the point I'm saying though is that the schools are not that good anyway. You got to get a freaking A. Go, you know what I'm saying? Come on, give me a break.
Did you get straight A's?
I got straight F's, man. Come on, why you think I'm here now? Straight F's. No, the thing about it though is that if you have caring parents with resources, you'll be fine.
Now, did you? Okay, I do not believe you got straight F's, but
I did, but a few times. Keep going.
What did you?
I'll take you off air.
All right. Did you? Yeah. What are you pointing?
Coogan.
Okay, Coogan. Yeah, he's on his way. Oh, yeah. Did you not do well in school because you weren't trying? Did you not do well in school because you had other distractions, or were you sleeping in class?
I think that was a big daydreamer. I probably was slow, had a learning disability, and I should have become a late bloomer. But that was in the 70s. I started grammar school in 67, man. That was a different time, okay? That was 51 years ago, whatever it was. And so the point is that the number one thing they did to me, this is why I used to fight. And I show you that article that Dawn Turner Trice wrote in 2002 or something about they sent she went to my son's school because they were ruining my son at the CPS like they ruined me, and I wasn't having it. But what I'm trying to say though is that I got moved from the smart kids classroom to the dumb kids classroom, and I never recovered. Never recover. Because once you buy into it becomes your identity. I am dumb. I'm not smart. I can't do it. It's almost like having when you're in college, the imposter syndrome. I'm not smart as these people here. I just don't try. Let's give up. And you never recover. And I should work it out with my therapist, but you never recover. So I faced it personally, and I forgive my parents because they weren't raised in Chicago. They were raised somewhere else. See, I know the CPS. I know it's maybe a little bit better than it was, but guess what? I love Lori Lightfoot better. She don't send her baby to the CPS. Ron didn't send his baby to CPS. I think Obama didn't send their baby to CPS. I don't think Arnie Duncan sent his baby to CPS. And when you got that kind of money, Ron's a multimillionaire. You don't send your damn children to CPS.
All right. The views expressed by Mark Sims are always those of Mark Sims. He is fired up. Jim Coogan's in the studio. We're going to bring him on and talk some Trump stuff. Don't go anywhere, Mark Sims.
Man, I better pay for parking.
We'll be right back after this.
Today's Ben Joravsky Show was brought to you in part by Chicago Architecture Center. See the city from a whole new angle on a Chicago Architecture Center tour. With more than 85 tours to choose from, there are endless stories to discover. Book your tour at architecture.org/tours. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm on a tour. Oh my, what magnificent architecture.
Hey everybody, what you're about to hear are the piano stylings of Jeff Manuel. Man, listen to Jeff go. Jeff Manuel has been playing piano around Chicago for years. He's played for conventions, for celebrities, played in basement bars with blues bands. He's played at prestigious social clubs, fine restaurants, and in the intimacy of private homes. Book Jeff Manuel at jeffemanuelpianist.com. Don't worry, I'll spell his name at the end of this commercial. You know what Chicago Magazine said? They said that Jeff Manuel is, quote, as comfortable with Chopin as he is with Cole Porter. He's excellent and his performance is joyous. He offers an elegant stream of compositions and interpretations that entertains the mind but won't hurt the ears. To hear more of Jeff Manuel's work and to book Jeff for your next event, go to jeffmanuelpianist.com. I'm going to spell it out for you, people. Jeff. M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, UELPIANIST.com. Take it away, Jeff Manuel.
Hey, welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Jim Coogan has joined us. Jim Coogan from Dwyer and Coogan, our personal injury lawyer. I haven't heard that one in a while. And he is our expert on Donald Trump in terms of all the investigations, the criminal investigations against Monroe Anderson is our Trump guy. We combine everything together. And now Thibault Buchanan. We got a lot of Trump people now. Thibault Buchanan has joined the party.
I mean, you make it sound like we got a lot of people who like Donald Trump, but we got a lot of people who can analyze on Donald Trump.
Thibault Buchanan will be on with us tomorrow. Monroe will not be able to make it. Thibault Buchanan will be here. We'll be talking some more Trump stuff as well. Trump. I have twisted Mark Sims' arm into staying. He's writing something feverishly down again.
Just don't break the other side of his glasses. They'll fall completely off.
So before we bring on Jim Coogan to talk Trump, what you got for me, D?
We got a quick update here. Mayor-elect Lori Lightfoot arrived at the White House today, kicking off 3 days of meetings in the nation's capital.
I did not know she was at the White House today.
Yeah, she's to meet with Ivanka Trump at the White House. Lightfoot and the president's daughter, a senior White House advisor, were to have an introductory meeting to discuss workforce development and other opportunities, a White House source said. Later today, Lightfoot is to meet with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and other top congressional leaders. On Wednesday, the incoming mayor is on the House side attending a meeting of the Congressional Black Caucus. Oh, Mark Sims is getting the drinks out. Non-alcoholic drinks, by the way, Sun-Times, all right? Don't kick us out of here. Later Tuesday, Lightfoot was to meet with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and other top congressional leaders. On Wednesday, the incoming mayor is on the House side attending a meeting of the Congressional Black Caucus with her fundraiser at a government affairs group in the evening. So, everybody, I'm posting to the Facebook page here. I think we can maybe help Lori Lightfoot out. Any advice we can give Lori Lightfoot and her trip to D.C.? I'm going to post it on the Facebook page.
All right. Don't believe anything that Donald Trump tells you. It's generally not true. There may be a kernel of truth in there, but it's an accident. Anyway.
And I want to mention one more thing. Tonight at 6:30 p.m., if you're on the live stream listening to this, tonight at 6:30 p.m., it's the first Tuesday. It's that time of the month with Ben Joravsky and Mick Dumke. It's a fantastic time. 1354 West Wabansia at the Hideout is the place that you want to go to. Once again, tonight at 6:30. And Alderman Scott Wagaspack will be their guest. Go check it out.
Man, Anne Marie Haddon, newly elected alderman of the 49th Ward, be talking about politics in Chicago in the age of Lori Lightfoot. Final thoughts on Mayor Rahm as he heads out the door. Maybe a little impeachment talk. Who knows? A lot of political junkies. When we in the audience, when we open up the room to questions, you never know what questions are going to come your way. Jim Coogan's been about 4 weeks since you've been on the show, and the oh my God, the wrangling that has gone on between the White House and the Democrats as to what Donald Trump is responsible to turn over to the congressmen and the congresswomen. The Democrats who are running the House of Representatives right now is just continuing apace. I can't even keep up anymore. Let's see, there seems to be taxes, and there seems to be Donald McCann's the special counsel, whether he can testify. Talk a little bit about that, what the Democrats can expect, should expect from the Trump White House in terms of turning over for their investigation.
Yeah, surprisingly quiet 4 weeks, huh?
Yeah,
every day I was worried we wouldn't have anything to talk about today. Yeah, in fact, I think I tricked you. You asked me if anything had happened today, like as I was on my way over here. Just looking at my phone, apparently the Don McGahn issue has expanded to include an assertion of executive privilege over any of the documents that he had used in the conducting the testimony that had already occurred as part of the Mueller investigation. So in addition to asserting executive privilege over McGahn testifying at all, apparently the new assertion from Cipollone is the White House attorney. They're asserting that none of the documents are available to Congress either, which part of the argument has been that they have already waived executive privilege as to his information that he's testified to. They are asserting that this is their way of trying to claw back that issue, at least in the reporting here from, I think it was the Washington Post. They're saying that they exclusively made those documents available for that express purpose, just for the testimony, but maintain any control over those documents as it relates to executive privilege.
That's a distinction I'm not following right now.
Well, I'm going to invoke the great senator from Rhode Island, Sheldon Whitehouse, when he used the term some very, very clever, very fine hair splitting when he was responding to some of the stuff that William Barr said in his Senate testimony last week. I don't think that there's a privilege there. I don't think that's a doctrine. I don't even think that exists. But
all right, so
that answers your question as to what to expect.
So
you can expand on that.
All right, help people out a little bit. McGahn is, of course, was Donald Trump's lawyer, White House lawyer for how long?
The White House counsel, not Donald Trump's lawyer.
Explain the
Important
distinction.
Because he serves the office of the presidency when he was in that role, whereas Donald Trump could have a personal attorney,
Michael Cohen,
if he seeks to do so. He still has several personal attorneys. He has attorneys working on business things, which of course he's not involved with his business, by the way. I didn't mean to imply that. He's got attorneys working on document issues, trying to advise him as to how he can manipulate the role of presidency in hiding some of this information and keeping these witnesses from testifying. But the office of the White House counsel is an attorney to advise the president in his official capacity about the law related to decisions that are being made, law of war, law of how do you fit with the Geneva Conventions when it comes to prisoners. We go back to the Bush years and the activities of the White House counsel with respect to torture memos. But their job is not to be Donald Trump's personal attorney. So McGahn never was. It's really important to keep that clear. Because
did Donald Trump ever turn to McCann for advice on how to deal with all the pending investigations?
I think that he has asked him questions, and part of the question is, well, what happens if you're all in the same room together? What is privileged and what is confidential about those meetings? You can waive confidentiality by having a meeting with your lawyer and having other people present who aren't also represented by that lawyer. So it can get really complicated, but even if he sought that advice from him, those conversations are not personal advice as an attorney, and they're not privileged, which is why he was able to testify to the special counsel for 30-odd hours.
All right, well, let me get to that. If he is the lawyer, the counsel of the White House, if he's, in a sense, the nation's lawyer, if you're a lawyer to the president represents the people, then you are a public official. How can they claim any kind of privilege? If you're a public lawyer, aren't all your conversations open to the public so the public can scrutinize what you're saying on their behalf?
In a word, disingenuously. That's how. That's the manner in which they make these claims. It's not, I don't think that the law will support it, I think that the law actually would state the opposite to the extent that this might get litigated. But whether or not that's something that has to be decided by a judge that's definitely playing right into the White House's hands on this, because the longer it takes, the longer this gets delayed.
All right, so let's go take it the local level. Laquan McDonald video controversy from 2015. Rahm Emanuel had conversations. I believe the man's name was Stephen Patton, was the mayoral counselor or whatever they called him, the mayor's lawyer, and he gave Mayor Rahm advice on what would happen if they released the video, why of the shooting of Laquan McDonald, why they should settle, et cetera, et cetera. Could we, the public, compel Stephen Patton to come forth and testify under oath as to what he advised Mayor Rahm, since that's similar, it's public matters?
So the Corporation Counsel's Office,
Corporation
are the
Counsel,
attorneys
that's
that work.
exactly, yeah.
So they represent the city of Chicago. They do not represent the mayor of Chicago individually as a person. I don't know if there are any special rules, like there may be some kind of statute that governs conversations between Corporation Counsel specifically in the state of Illinois. Unless there's some exception like that, it would be a similar. The analogy is correct in the sense that he's representing the city of Chicago, and any conversations that they have where the mayor is seeking a legal opinion, unless there's some special reason why that should be confidential. Why wouldn't that?
Well, in the past, Arnie Duncan, who was the former school board head here in the city of Chicago under Mayor Daley, what did he say? That these are confidential advice. That he was refusing a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information request from someone, I think it was a reporter, who was seeking reports or analysis. I forget exactly what it was, but he was arguing that these reports should be off limits to the public because people want to be free to speak their minds when they're giving advice and counsel to their client, be it the head of the school board, be it the mayor, be it the president, I suppose, that they should feel free to say, if you're my lawyer giving me advice, you, Jim Coogan, should feel free to give me advice without having to worry about whether it would be published and you would be examined about it. Then you wouldn't feel free, and then that would hurt the president. Mm-hmm. Do you buy any of that?
Well, there you had to go complicate the analogy a little bit, because there would be a distinction over what Illinois' Freedom of Information law allows, and if you go through it, what things are about which matters can the public entity refuse to turn something over. There's exceptions under that rule, but specifically here, what we may be talking about, and it depends on which documents and which information, but this is congressional access. So these are people who have access to some of those sensitive matters that would otherwise be shielded from public view, and whether or not that those certain topics are discussed in public hearings versus closed session, that can be one of the ways that they can get around the issue of things that are supposed to be sensitive in a way that it can allow for a free exchange of good legal advice, as opposed to something that's constrained because the lawyer feels like, well, I can't say this on the record, so I can't really tell you the right advice, and now it's harming constraining the office in some way. That could be a concern, but that's not what they're raising here either. I mean, they're just saying, number one, when you start the game by saying that the White House will refuse all requests for information and all congressional subpoenas, then you've set it up in a totally different manner. Like, we could get into the merits of this discussion if it were A, a normal presidency, or B, just one specific debate that was going on. But because they've taken this blanket position, they have basically just declared that Article 1 of the Constitution is invalid. This is an attack on the Constitution. Yeah. Every position that they're taking in what they're setting up as a litigation, even though it really wouldn't be. It's a battle between branches of government.
And Article 1, for our listeners, stipulates.
That's what creates Congress. And I don't think it was an accident that is the first
article.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Things have changed since we've come to a heavily executive, almost like monarch in our country. Do you think there's any merit whatsoever to some of the arguments of executive privilege that the Trump White House is raising? I know you just said it's across the board. They don't even draw a distinction. Do you think there's any, when you view it, can you see a situation where, well, yeah, they have a point there. I would feel uncomfortable if the roles were reversed and it was Republicans demanding the same information, similar information from Democrats. Do you see any merit to their argument?
Why would you put me in the position of trying to rationalize what the Trump legal strategy is?
Yeah.
Look, they have a right to assert executive privilege, but and I know that I'm not a scholar on this particular question, but you have to do it in a manner that actually has rationale to it and is logical and makes sense. Mm-hmm. So there could be specific things that they could assert it towards. But the topics that you mentioned in the lead into this segment of the show today, if we're talking about tax returns for which there is a specific statute, a law that says that the Treasury Secretary shall turn over that information, then no, there's no legitimate assertion of privilege. If we're talking about information that's already been shared with the special counsel investigation, which the special counsel regulations state has to be turned over to the Attorney General and then can, in his discretion, be turned over to Congress. But if he hides things that triggers turning it over to Congress, that was like the release valve, then no, there's no executive privilege over that anymore. And if it's anything else that they've asserted that they're not going to turn over at this point, or filing lawsuits against to stop banks from responding to legitimate subpoenas, none of this is about executive privilege. In fact, I mean, they're not even using that as their excuse for a lot of it. They're saying, if you look at the Mnuchin refusal, they're hanging it all on legitimate legislative purpose, that Congress doesn't have the power to investigate something for which there's not some kind of legislative purpose behind it. But that is almost a meaningless claim, because Congress's power over the years has in terms of investigative powers, has been broadened to include any and all of these things.
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking about? Tax policy? Of course they have the power to investigate that. Are we talking about whether or not there might be a counterintelligence investigation involving the president, and if he obstructed that? Yeah, I think they have oversight power over that. I think there's legislative authority that could potentially lead to changes in the law about that. So it's such a thin reed to be hanging on that it should collapse.
Well, I think your point that you made earlier that is the best one here in terms of they're going to raise everything they can to drag this out, to keep it going for a long time. They want if they drag it out long enough, the election will happen, and they will not have, Donald Trump will not have turned the stuff over. So I think that's probably what they're doing. They're dragging out the clock on this thing.
Yeah, I mean, they don't know if they're going to win in 2020 or not, although I'm sure that they're expecting more assistance. But in the meantime, the longer they can drag it out, they can claim it's unfair, and to the extent that it's possible, turn that into more of the victimhood. Oh, woe is me! Look at how I'm always being attacked, to drum up support from Donald Trump's base.
All right, winning 2020. We're going to hold that off for a while, because that gets into the Nancy Pelosi claim that came over the weekend, which I think I sent you the article as soon as it came out, or maybe you sent it to me, I can't remember, but that she is warning Democrats that Donald Trump will resist any loss unless it's unless it's an overwhelming mandate. But I'm going to go back to just something before we get into the politics of all this. One of the things McGahn did, Donald McGahn, the lawyer to the White House, he took notes. I don't know if you saw this, but Donald Trump it's in the Mueller report, got upset at him for taking notes. And he goes, great lawyers don't take notes. I'm paraphrasing. Roy Cohen's, of course, the sleazy lawyer from New York City that Donald Trump hired back in the early 80s and late 70s, total sleazoid. Roy Cohen never took notes. Lawyers not taking notes, what's that all about?
That is invoking this general mafioso kind of persona that Donald Trump wants, or has just adopted over the years by hanging around people like that. I mean, Roy Cohen was disbarred, so I wouldn't cite his legal practice as like par excellence, or how you're even supposed to do anything. More importantly, the notes that were being taken were because this goes back to why, or the nature of that attorney-client relationship. I mean, if it was his personal lawyer and he said, listen, I want to have a conversation with you, don't take any notes. First of all, that lawyer should reconsider whether they should stay in that room before they had that conversation. That goes to your trust of your own client. But Don McGahn wasn't advising him personally, so his assistant is there. I can't remember the woman's name, but she's a conservative, younger attorney who ended up getting a job as his assistant. chief of staff, I think, and she's the person who took apparently copious notes, some of which the information was actually cited in the Mueller report characterizing some of the things that were happening at some of those meetings. Of course there's notes. And yeah, good lawyers take notes, particularly when you're trying to have a meeting and you're deriving some kind of policy from it, or you're going to memorialize what was discussed because some kind of action has to be taken later on. Arguably, this is part of historical record as well.
Yeah. I found it's very bizarre advice to give. And part of it, we were talking about dyslexia. The only way I can keep track of a conversation is to take notes. So if folks can't see this, but when Jim's talking, I'm taking notes on what Jim says. When Mark was talking, I'm taking notes on what Mark is saying. So it's just a strange piece of advice to give somebody. You can't take notes.
Well, and you're talking about an attorney. I mean, it's like that's part of the culture, is to try to record information, because the whole point, people expect that those people that their attorneys are going to remember what happened, that it's going to be accurate. There's an obligation to create accurate records in order to represent your client, even if your client is the White House and not the individual president.
And that's Jim Coogan, our ace attorney from Dwyer and Coogan. When we come back, we'll take a little break, come back, we'll talk to politics of this wrangling between Donald Trump and the Democrats. We'll be right back after this.
Today's Ben Joravsky Show was brought to you in part by Chicago Architecture Center. Get to know your city on one of Chicago Architecture Center's 65 walking tours. Hear the unforgettable secrets and stories behind Chicago architecture from our expert docents. Book your tour at architecture.org/tours. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm actually on a tour right now. Oh, wow, look at that building.
At Chicagoland Cremation Options, we are committed to listening, educating, and guiding your family through the cremation process. Whether it is time of death or when planning your wishes for the future, Chicagoland Cremation Options can accommodate you at an affordable price and with great dignity. Avoid funeral home costs with direct access to a crematory for a cremation. Chicagoland Cremation Options, just south of O'Hare, 5 minutes west of Chicago. It's a family-owned business and operated by my good friend, Douglas Klein. Visit it at ChicagolandCremationOptions.com. One more time, ChicagolandCremationOptions.com.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Explore Cirque du Soleil Volta, a captivating voyage of discovery. Opens May 18th under the Big Top at Soldier Field. Buy your tickets now. Oh, wait, hold up. All right, welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. Wait, I got to play this song. Hold on. We could edit this. It's fine. You know what I mean? It's all good.
What about our listeners right now?
Oh, the listeners want this too, all right? Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. Mr. Joravsky, take us home.
I love that song. Oh, man. I don't know where you found it, but it just makes me feel so good every time.
It's just in the library.
All right. We still have, we're going to keep him here a little while longer. Jim Coogan, Mark Sims still in the studio. By the way, we made a reference to Roy Cohn, the sleazy lawyer from the 70s and the 60s, etc. I urge absolutely everybody to check out Angels in America. You can still see it somewhere. It's Tony Kushner's play that deals, the character in the play, Roy Cohn, played by Al Pacino, who hits the ball out of the park. Al Pacino kills it, Mark Sims, as Roy Cohn, the sleazy Roy Cohn. Before I go to Dennis, you got something you want
to... First, I'm going to tell you about you. And I'm trying to park the car. Long story. I got to ask, Jim is so good. Jim Coogan is so good. I was watching this movie, and these guys are writing really, really good notes. It was a movie called All the President's Men.
Oh,
you ever see that movie?
Only about 400 times.
Think about it. And guess what? I never seen it. I've seen parts. It is held up. It's a good movie. So I got to ask Jim, the lawyer, do you think Nixon knew anything about Watergate?
I mean, you'd have to go find some evidence, wouldn't you, to know the answer to that question?
Because I'm not going to give the movie away, but you know what I'm saying. That was a great movie.
No, it's a great movie.
I never watched it. 40-something-year-old movie, and it held up.
Well, let me just tell you this. I've said this on the air. I don't know if I ever told you, Jim. I got into journalism in part because of that movie and the scenes between Deep Throat, who is the operative for secret operative. We didn't know whose identity was releasing information to Woodward, who was played by Robert Redford, and was like, oh man, this is what I want to do. I was young and impressionable. And then it turned out years later that Deep Throat was actually Mark Feld, one of the number 2 man at the FBI, and he was not motivated so much, in my humble opinion, when I've read the story, by the need to expose corruption. He was trying to manipulate the process so that Nixon would appoint him as the head of the FBI in the aftermath of J. Edgar Hoover not dying. And so, like, oh my God, all the wrong reasons I went into journalism. I should have been a lawyer.
Man, I got to go, man. Baby, hold me. Listen, I'm at the United. I parked the car at United Center.
Yeah, okay.
And I put a sign that said, Ben loves the Bulls. You think my car's still there?
Yeah, no, it's been towed about an hour ago.
You the man, baby.
All right, Mark Sims has left the building.
I like Mark Sims.
Mark Sims has left. Do you got an update for us?
Absolutely, I do. 2 things here. First off, once again, everybody tonight. See you, Mark.
Bye, Mark.
All right. Tonight, Tuesday, May 7th, at the Hideout, 1354 West Wabansia, off Elston and between North Avenue and Ashland. It's Ben Joravsky and Mick Dumke's monthly First Tuesday show. Starts at 6:30 tonight. So if you're listening live right now or on the download before 6:30, well, come hang out, check it out. Ben has lined up 2 fantastic guests, the 32nd Ward Alderman Scott Wagaspack, and I'm going to try and channel my inner Ben Joravsky here, and 49th Ward Alderman?
49th Alderwoman, Maria Haddon.
Maria Haddon will be there
good,
as well. So go check it out. And hey, who knows? If you tell him you heard the Ben Joravsky Show, maybe Ben will buy you a few drinks.
Dr. D will be there, and he'll be buying drinks for everybody.
Oh, yeah, my broke ass. All right, so, and we do have a quick update here. Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign has unveiled sweeping new guidelines to combat sexual misconduct and discrimination among his campaign team. The move comes after months of talks with former staffers who felt mistreated during the senator's 2016 White House bid. The 17-page document, a copy of which was seen by The Guardian, is the result of an effort to reckon with a culture Sanders has acknowledged was, quote, too white and too male. It draws on the experiences of former staffers as well as research and industry best practices to compile what the authors hope will serve as a blueprint for other candidates and campaigns.
That's that Bernie bro stuff that was going down in 2016 where, man, there was such hostility expressed by some of Bernie's supporters to Hillary Clinton. And then it turned out in the aftermath, not only was there hostility expressed toward Hillary Clinton, the candidate, but there was some hostility expressed toward women who were working for the campaign. So Bernie's got to deal with that as he goes forward this year. So, all right, Jim Coogan in the studio with me from Dwyer & Coogan, our expert on the legal aspects of Donald Trump. And I alluded to this before we went to break, Jim. Over the weekend, Nancy Pelosi, she gave an interview, I think, or maybe it was a speech, but she was warning Democrats that, in her opinion, Donald Trump would, in all likelihood, vigorously resist an election that turned against him, and he would claim that it was rigged. And she was raising the notion that Donald Trump would just not leave office. What's your thoughts of all that?
Well, my initial thought is that whether it's now, in the next month, in the next 5 months, in this immediate period where the House of Representatives will be attempting to conduct an investigation into the president and into the illegal activities that are explicitly outlined in the Mueller report, or if it's 2020, we have now Donald Trump has pushed this issue to a head that the country is going to be passing on a referendum on whether we want to keep the constitutional democracy that we've had. That's what I think is going on. Because even just the fact that someone would have the question and anybody else would respond and think, well, that's not a crazy thought, that the president would refuse to leave office unless there was a large enough margin of victory, that is just completely unconstitutional. It's so deeply contrary to all American values and the shared governmental experience that we're all a part of it. I mean, there may be a lot of voter apathy out there, but it's still we the people. So I think that her counsel about that it's people, she's trying to be careful. She's trying to triangulate a little bit, trying to deal with a very diverse caucus, not all of which are progressive, strong, bold liberals who are forthrightly in favor of impeachment and want a Green New Deal and want to protect the environment and want Medicare for all. She's got a lot of those folks, but she's got people in very conservative districts who managed to win because they came off as serious politicians in an era of noise and nonsense. And those people are more, congressmen right now, when their candidates up in 2020, are a little bit more concerned about sounding too zealous about impeachment. So she's trying to wrangle all those folks, and she's counseling them to we're going to be careful. We're going to be conservative in how we approach this. We don't want to go off the deep end because she's calculating that to keep a wide enough swath, the way that they won in 2018, can win them back the House again. Who knows how that impacts the Senate, and support whoever the candidate is for the Democrats, that whoever that person is, whether it's Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, or whoever, that person can also capture more than just a base. And if you take a good chunk of independents in this country, you're going to be the president.
Mm-hmm. Well, you raise, throughout this show today, you've been raising some very compelling legal issues that deal with that overriding point, keeping a constitutional democracy that we have. And that essentially is at the heart of this dispute between the Congress, the legislative branch, and Trump, the executive branch. What's your sense about how the population as a whole views it? Do you think people see it in those fundamental terms that you laid it out? Or do you think there's a fear, the possibility that people would think the Democrats are being unfair to the president?
I think there's a concern. I have a personal concern that there will be a perception that Democrats are being histrionic, or that I'm being extreme and taking it too far when I even bring up the point. But if you really think about it, if you take the example of right now, it only takes one of the houses of Congress to be complicit and basically say, well, whatever the president wants, we're going to go along with it. And then suddenly you don't have any checks or balances anymore. And I don't know how far this president will continue to take this, but once this precedent has been set, how could any Congress ever assert any sort of independent check on the president ever again once it's gone? Maybe if you have a president who's a Republican and the House and Senate are both Democratic, you could legitimately bring up impeachment or bring it up in a way that it might sustain a little bit more life in the Senate once you impeach the president and they have a trial. But right now, they're being curtailed in their ability to even have an investigation of the president. So if it undermines the Article 1 of the Constitution, and they can't actually do their jobs, then it's no longer three co-equal branches of government, and you've destroyed the system that was set up in the Constitution. I mean, after the first three articles, the rest of it's just a lot of stuff that kind of sets up the bones upon which the rest of the government is created. But if you throw that balance off, and if you make it so that the people's house, the group that represents the most diverse viewpoints and has local roots in each state and in each congressional district, then it simply can't be America the way we've always expected it to be.
All right. Now, before we head out the door, you talked about the three branches of government. So we've already talked about the congressional investigation of Donald Trump and his resistance of that. The third branch, of course, is judicial, and they'll probably be the judges who decide what Donald Trump has to turn over, what is public, that the Congress has a right to see. And of course, ultimately, that decision will be made by the Supreme Court, two of whose members were appointed by Donald Trump. And I know we've talked at great length over the years about Donald Trump's Supreme Court appointee. So looking in your crystal ball before we head out the door, do you have any sense of where the third branch of government, how the third branch will weigh in on this?
Putting my cynicism aside, for some of the issues, they are so straightforward that I'm hopeful that there will be 5 votes, if not more, but probably just 5, to uphold, for example, the mandate that the Treasury Secretary has to turn over records. They could make new law or, reassert an 1883 case that has explicitly been ruled, has been overturned, that gave, said that there was more discretion for the Treasury Secretary. But I'm hopeful that wouldn't happen, because that would be the definition of activist and partisan judiciary.
Ironic.
But there's other issues where, when it comes to criminal contempt, where I don't know how you even get to that point, because you don't have a Justice Department that would actually execute those cases. I believe that, if I'm using a crystal ball here, and this is a little deviation from your question, I would say what's more likely is that William Barr will be impeached sometime in the near future, because he's going to force that issue. He's not going to turn over information. He's not going to cooperate. And there's 3 options with it when it comes to contempt. There's something called congressional inherent contempt, and I don't know if you've seen this. It's popped up in the news lately. But that's something that hasn't been invoked in like 90 years. Okay, so without the Justice Department's assistance to carry that case through and actually bring a contempt case in front of a judge, Congress can't even enforce the failure to comply with subpoenas. I mean, that's how subpoenas work. Most people, you get a subpoena, you respond to it. But if you push the issue and give them your proverbial middle finger and just don't respond to it, then there has to be a judicial enforcement of that. Well, without a Justice Department that's actually going to do the work, suddenly you've undermined the whole function of the system. So I would be, number one, the reason I say that, and I know seems a little bit shocking, but I can't imagine why William Barr would suddenly change course and start working with House Democrats and working to enforce subpoenas against a president that he has clearly promised that he will help in any way he possibly can, regardless of whether it's legal.
Oh, my goodness. So then talk about dragging out the clock. Impeaching Barr over his for his refusal to turn over documents that relate to an investigation of Trump. You can't impeach Trump until you've finished the Barr impeachment. That would definitely that would be the definition of dragging out the clock.
I mean, it's one of the reasons why the strategic decision is so difficult. Do you impeach them both at the same time? Do you go straight to the president? We're 18 months away or something from November, but it's going to be here before you know it. I don't know what the most effective way to do it is, but with this level of contempt, and I mean contempt in the legal sense and in the personal sense, the level of contempt that you could see from this attorney general, their hand is being forced. And they can't, I firmly believe that this group, no matter how difficult it is, cannot just concede, give in, and say, well, we don't even have the legal levers here. We couldn't get a conviction in the Senate if we tried, so let's not do this. Because if that were the case, what was the point of even electing a Democratic House? What are you guys there for?
Absolutely. I actually agree with you on that point. Nancy Pelosi may have a little different opinion, or maybe she's just being strategic in how she's playing. I get a feeling she's being very strategic.
I agree on that.
I think she's just being very cautious and playing that game where, I can't really control this wild bunch over here, but I wanted to be prudent. Anyway, Jim Coogan, it's always a blast talking these issues with you, and I know you're going to be coming back real soon. Lord knows what the world will look like in about a month or so. So thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. And Mark Sims, want to thank him. He is heading off to get his car before it gets towed. I hope I'm lucky in that. I drove here too. Good Lord, maybe my car's. I'll see Mark at the towing zone later tonight. And Maya was here earlier today. She was on fire, as always. Great job by Maya. I want to thank Miles Porter for doing the outstanding job he always does as our show's editor. And, of course, the man, the myth, the legend, the man who makes it all work. Pride and joy of Alton, Illinois. They call him the White Lightning.
You're the only one that calls me that.
White Lightning, because he's so fast, and the ladies all love for his body and his mind. The Doctor. Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. See you tomorrow, everybody. White Lightning.
And remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows and bonus Benny J interviews at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites, chicago.suntimes.com, chicagoreader.com. Check out those bonus interviews. Stacey Davis Gates, Ken Davis, and West Virginia gubernatorial candidate Stephen Smith. And be sure to check out Ben at the Hideout tonight, 1354 West Wabansia. It starts at 6:30. Scott Wagaspack and Maria Haddon.